The deafening roar of engines splits the night as a biker gang tears through the city. They ride in formation, a formidable presence claiming the road as their own. Our story takes us back in time, to the bustling, neon-lit streets of 1989 Tokyo. On a storefront television, a news anchor gravely discusses the state of the Japanese economy. Passers-by stop to watch, their faces reflecting the uncertainty of an economic bubble about to burst. A young boy points excitedly at the approaching motorcycles, but his mother quickly pulls him back in fear. Yet as they pass, one of the bikers pulls his car over, having just arrived at their destination. He's just finished helping a lost old man, who beams with gratitude for the unexpected kindness. This is Momoi Yuichiro, vice commander of the Amida, proudly declaring they've crushed the gangs that used to terrorize people. But his triumphant moment is shattered as a frantic subordinate rushes in with terrible news. Their rivals have stormed the hideout. Cursing the timing, Momoi realizes their commander is gone at the worst possible moment and orders everyone back. They arrive to a nightmare. The rival Emperor gang has already swarmed their base, armed and waiting. In the chaos, Momoi demands to know where the other leaders are, but Joji confirms they're scattered and unreachable. The Emperor's cocky leader brandishes a katana, declaring his ambition to conquer the entire Kanto region. He mocks a captured Amida member, calling them cowards for being ambushed a day before the agreed-upon battle. With a blade to Joji's throat, he sneers that promises mean nothing in a real fight. But a new voice echoes through the warehouse, calmly stating that he kept his promise, stopping the leader cold. The source of the voice isn't a weapon, but a hand casually holding a small plastic bag. A man's voice continues, a lesson on promises, as he coolly places a cigarette to his lips. The Amida commander stands behind him, appearing from nowhere, leaving the Emperor leader utterly stunned. The Emperor leader's blood runs cold as he finally understands what happened to his men outside. While he was busy posturing, the Amida commander arrived at the promised time and delivered a single, brutal punch. The remaining goons recognize him with dread. It's the legendary Tiger of Kanto. He is the one and only commander of Amida, a name that echoes with power, Goro Takakura. One of the Emperor thugs scoffs, thinking a tiger is nothing against a whole pack. The entire group swarms Goro, piling on top to crush him with their sheer numbers. But as they strain to hold him down, a terrifying realization dawns: it's not working. With an explosive burst of strength, Goro sends them all flying, chiding them for their mindless tactics. He demonstrates his point with a bone-shattering tombstone piledriver, a brutal end to a foolish plan. The Emperor's leader sneaks up from behind, still babbling that numbers are all that matter. He swings a steel pipe with a desperate roar, aiming to end this once and for all. But Goro doesn't even need to turn, intercepting the weapon with a bone-crushing karate chop to the face. He scoffs at the very idea of weapons, reminding the fool that real biker pride is just bare hands and a bike. And with that final lesson, the battlefield falls silent, with the entire Emperor gang broken at his feet. The Amida members explode with cheers, their commander's victory echoing through the night. Goro calmly walks over to his men, checking on the battered Yuichiro and Joji. Yuichiro, filled with relief and awe, thanks him for protecting their hideout and their brothers. Goro tells them to get the injured to a hospital, then murmurs that they've finally unified Kanto. He immediately pauses, a look of confusion on his face. Kanto? Unification? Where did that come from? Yuichiro confirms it with a grin. Those guys were the last of them, and with their defeat, the delinquents of Kanto are finally united under Amida's banner. Goro's mind races. Wait, the final battle was supposed to be tomorrow, wasn't it? He seems to recall a different timeline. His men quickly correct him. No, the Emperor gang launched a cowardly surprise attack a day early while he was away. Ah, that explains it. With a stomp of his boot, Goro declares that to commemorate this grand unification, the mighty Amida gang will disband tomorrow. The announcement hits the crowd like a shockwave. What? Disband? After everything they fought for? Goro looks over his stunned followers, calmly explaining that since they've defeated all their rivals, their work is simply done. Besides, he adds with a warm smile, he made a promise to his little sister to quit the gang life once Kanto was unified. But then his face freezes. Little sister? Wait a minute, who is he even talking about? Suddenly, the gang's future is irrelevant. He panics, screaming about a limited edition cake for someone named Yuki. One of his men, Yuichiro, tentatively holds up a crumpled, unrecognizable lump of pastry. The horrible memory hits him. He used the cake box to smash an enemy's face, ruining his sister's birthday gift. With no time to waste, he hops on his bike, shouting that the store isn't closed yet and he'll deal with the gang later. He speeds off into the sunset, leaving his loyal followers completely baffled by his sudden departure for Shinjuku. His men gather around the pathetic cake remains, realizing it's a special item from a store far away. And their commander, a man who gets lost riding in a group, is going there all by himself. But they all agree. His little sister Yuki is so adorable. She's worth any amount of trouble. Across the yard, other members are still trying to process the whiplash of the commander's return and his talk of disbanding. And now he's ranting about a cake? It's all too much, as one gangster vents his frustration on a nearby can. But some of the injured members are furious, feeling the leadership has gone soft on the commander. Just as they think the fun is over, a call comes in for the special attack squad. A lieutenant answers a payphone. It's Rosetsu, and he needs something handled right now. On the other end, Rosetsu gives a chilling order to intercept the commander on his way to Shinjuku. His command is simple and brutal. Finish him off for good. As his followers drape a new cape over him, he declares Goro Takakura unfit to be their leader. He then steps out to address the entire Amida Special Attack Squad, a massive force at his back. They respond with a unified roar as he begins to spin his narrative of betrayal. He claims the commander used them all and is now trying to throw them away by disbanding the gang. With a furious roar, he shouts that to Goro. They were nothing more than disposable tires. Rosetsu roars that if the commander wants to disband Amida, that's fine by him. Because from this moment on, the Special Attack Squad belongs to someone else. Miles away, Goro rides on, naively thinking this is for the best and that his kind-hearted men will understand. But Rosetsu's speech continues, promising to drive out all of Amida's old executives. As Goro speeds through a tunnel, he's suddenly tailed by a vehicle closing in fast. The usurper declares that he, Rosetsu Shuhei, will rebuild the entire organization, and to do that, has made sure Goro Takakura won't be a problem anymore. A brutal impact sends the commander's motorcycle scraping across the pavement. Rosetsu grins, announcing the birth of his new gang, Millennium, with himself as the one true leader. But just as Goro is about to be wiped out, a blinding flash of blue energy erupts from the crash. A pillar of raw energy engulfs Goro, tearing through the darkness of the tunnel. The light fades, and he's furious, screaming at the driver who he thinks nearly ran him over. But as he glances forward, the tunnel is gone, replaced by a strange, brightly lit causeway. His anger dissolves into pure confusion. What is happening? This isn't right. He looks up and sees not a concrete ceiling, but a massive stage lighting rig. In fact, he's somehow on a stage, his motorcycle rumbling under the spotlights, facing a huge crowd. Hundreds of phones are pointed directly at him, their flashes going off like a swarm of fireflies. The hardened gang commander is completely overwhelmed, blinded by the sudden media blitz. He's been transported to Tokyo in the year 2025, smack in the middle of a massive public event. And that event? The 15th International Cosplay Convention, of all ridiculous places. The crowd is going wild, but for whom? It's magical girl Lilith Pico, apparently. And on stage is a hulking, bearded man, clearly nervous in his frilly blue dress as the MC tries to interview him. Hess, even getting heckled from backstage, told Hess a disgrace to cosplayers everywhere. But the show must go on. As the next contestant, Haruka Mizuno, takes the stage in her Catgirl outfit. She strikes a pose for the roaring crowd, basking in the bright lights of the convention. Her eyes are filled with a fierce determination. She declares that she absolutely has to win this competition. But elsewhere in the city, a much darker drama is unfolding as a young woman is slammed against a wall. A group of delinquents corner her, accusing her of being a traitor for trying to leave their crew. She stands her ground, saying she's done delivering drugs and money, she's not a criminal. Just then, their leader, Muraki Kano, steps out of the shadows with a cold, simple offer. 1 million yen. He leans in close, reminding her of the rules. If you want to leave the crew, bring back 1 million yen. And in a twist of fate, back at the convention, that's the exact grand prize announced for the winner participant number 17. Haruka is ecstatic she did it. As she reaches for the envelope, she knows the prize money is hers. But in a flash of light and thunder, the prize is ripped from her grasp by a figure on a motorcycle bursting onto the stage. He screeches to a halt, sending her hard-earned cash flying as Haruka screams in pure shock. Before she can even react, a massive steel spike materializes in the air, plunging down towards her. It hurtles towards her face, only to be snatched mid-air with a powerful clap, inches from her eye. The mysterious biker stands there, holding her prize and the spike, looking completely lost as he asks where he is. Backstage, the crew is in a panic, wondering who this guy is and how he managed to ride a bike onto the stage. The crowd, however, thinks this is all part of the act, roaring with approval for his overwhelming performance. The other contestants, furious, rush the stage, declaring he won't cut in the prize is theirs. But the biker isn't listening. He just revs his engine and speeds off, leaving them in the dust. He has no idea what they're talking about, and frankly doesn't care. He's busy and needs everyone out of his way. From the judges' table, however, a slow, impressed clap begins to echo through the hall. The lead judge is blown away, telling his colleagues that this isn't acting, the man has become the character. With his vintage biker jacket, classic pompadour, and old-school motorcycle, he's a perfect 100 recreation. Overwhelmed by this masterclass performance, the judges happily award him the grand prize. Haruka can only watch in absolute horror as her prize money is handed over to a complete stranger. Now outside, the biker looks at the prize certificate, wondering what cosplay even is and if this is really $1,000,000. The only context he has for this kind of money is from the board games he plays with his little sister. But the Amida commander is completely lost, plagued by his notoriously bad sense of direction. As he stands by his bike, a voice calls out to him from the darkness, sensing his confusion. It's the pink-haired cosplayer he just defeated, offering a seemingly innocent hand. He has absolutely no memory of her, leaving the girl utterly flabbergasted that he's already forgotten their showdown on stage. Trying to get her prize money back, she asks him to scan the QR code on the certificate, only for him to have no clue what she's talking about. He holds up the card like some ancient relic, and she realizes with dawning horror that he's not pretending he's a genuine relic from a bygone era. When she asks about a smartphone, he asks her to speak in a language he can understand, making her wonder if he's been locked away from society for decades. Seeing her chance, she offers to check the certificate for him, secretly planning to swap it for a fake and reclaim her prize. But in a move that shatters all her expectations, he simply hands it over, declaring that he has no use for it anyway. Just as she's about to celebrate, he pulls the certificate back, his sudden hesitation throwing her into a state of pure panic. He offers her a simple, almost absurd deal, guide him to a department store he can't find, and the prize money is hers. Her face immediately lights up with pure greed, eagerly accepting the offer from this clueless time traveler. But his true motive is completely unexpected. This legendary delinquent is on a mission to buy a limited edition cake. Brushing off his bizarre quest, she tells him to wait as she runs to get changed, warning him not to dare back out of their deal. Safely inside the changing room, she celebrates her victory, the 1,000,000 yen prize practically already in her hands. She scoffs at his ignorance, knowing the store he mentioned has been gone for years, but she'll gladly lead him on a wild goose chase for the money. Suddenly, the entire room is plunged into an unnerving, absolute darkness, catching her completely off guard. She calls out, thinking it's a simple blackout, until the chilling sound of the doorknob slowly rattling breaks the silence. Annoyance mixes with a growing fear as she tells whoever is out there to stop messing around. But the figure that emerges from the shadows is no prankster, it's a terrifying presence, looming right behind her with a bone-chilling stare. The man's voice is a sickening whisper as he pins her down, his obsession finally within his grasp. He leans in closer, his words dripping with a twisted desire that sends a wave of pure disgust through her. But she's not a damsel in distress, fighting back with a desperate kick square to his gut. Scrambling away from her downed attacker, she screams for help, her voice filled with terror. She bolts for the door, yelling that there's a pervert in the woman's locker room, praying for salvation. But the figure blocking her escape isn't a hero, it's the imposing leader of the Meraki crew, a man known for his brutality. In a flash, his foot connects with her stomach, as he coldly lectures her for harming one of his crew's precious customers. His gang emerges from the shadows, revealing the true nightmare. She owes them a 1,000,000 yen protection fee. They mock her failure, reminding her that she was supposed to pay them back with the first-place prize she just lost. As her hope completely shatters, the stalker gets back to his feet, and the gang leader offers to settle her debt by selling her to him. The stalker's eyes gleam with a disgusting excitement, thrilled by her terror as the deal is made. The gang leader sneers, offering her a twisted form of freedom. She can leave the crew, but only after she's worked off her debt to this man. He leans in, his words dripping with venom, telling her this is all she's good for, a plaything for men like him, as she can only glare back in helpless fury. But her defiance is met with brutal force as his hand clamps down on her face, squeezing with enough pressure to silence her protests. He then disgustingly haggles the price right in front of her, setting a photography fee while warning the pervert not to damage the product. With the deal sealed, the stalker eagerly turns to the fitting room door, his twisted fantasy about to become a horrifying reality. But just as he reaches for the handle, an unseen force slams into him, shattering his glasses and his sick expectations. The door explodes inwards as a mysterious figure in a long coat sends the entire gang and the stalker flying with a single, devastating kick. Stunned and sprawled on the floor, the gang leader can only stare in disbelief, his brain struggling to process the sudden, overwhelming violence that just erupted. And standing over them is their new reality, a man whose presence alone radiates immense power, coldly telling them to hurry up and get out. The gang leader shoves the terrified girl aside, furious at the interruption and demanding to know who this newcomer thinks he is. He immediately lunges forward with a powerful right hook, warning the stranger not to get cocky just because he made a flashy entrance. He continues his brutal assault, mocking the man's biker coat, questioning if a piece of clothing somehow makes him a real fighter. But his rage is met with impossible speed, and after dodging every blow, the stranger finally counters with a single fist that shatters his face. The impact sends the massive thug flying, a completely one-sided beatdown from a man who seems to be on an entirely different level. As the rest of the crew stands frozen in shock, the commander calmly announces his true, absurd purpose. He needs to go buy his sister's birthday cake. He then casually steps over the unconscious body of their leader, his priorities completely alien to the violence he just unleashed. Turning to the girl, he drapes his own coat over her shoulders and gently reminds her of a promise she made. He extends a hand, asking her to go with him, his quiet words cutting through the chaos and confusion. She can only stare back, her mind racing. He's a complete stranger, tacky and weird, but his sudden appearance has changed everything. Staring at the hand offered to her, she's overwhelmed by a strange sense of déjà vu, a feeling that she's met this monster somewhere before. The scene shifts to a memory of a little girl, his sister Yuki, happily telling her friends that her big brother is coming to pick her up with a birthday present. But as the hours pass, Yuki is left standing all alone, clutching her teddy bear, wondering where her brother could be. The sun sets on a lonely bench, as she recalls his simple promise he said he'd buy her a cake. That memory fuels his fury in the present as he brings his fist down again, roaring that he absolutely must go buy his sister's birthday cake. The remaining delinquents are left speechless, their minds unable to comprehend a man this powerful being driven by something so absurd. When another member foolishly charges forward, he's instantly and effortlessly kicked to the ground, a non-threat to the man on a mission. Standing over the wreckage of their crew, he ignores their furious threats, his focus entirely elsewhere. His only explanation for the carnage is that he made a promise, a cryptic reason that leaves everyone completely baffled. Then, he points to the pink-haired girl, mispronouncing her name and declaring that she will be the one to show him the way, forcibly making her a part of his quest. The last of the crew charges in with baseball bats, screaming at him to stop messing around, completely unaware of the line they've just crossed. But their frantic attacks are useless as he meets them with a single, bone-shattering punch that caves in the first man's chest. He plants his foot, his mind locked on a simple, yet unbreakable creed that a real man always keeps his word. And fueled by that conviction, he unleashes a devastating kick that sends the last two goons flying, a brutal lesson on the true weight of a promise. Their bodies are launched like cannonballs, shattering a reinforced glass door and scattering debris across the hallway. The pink-haired girl watches the whole thing unfold, her mind stuck on his cheesy declaration of what it means to be a real man. She looks over the absolute carnage, the unconscious bodies littering the floor, and can't help but think his motivation is just lame. The monster turns to the last few survivors cowering by the broken door, calmly telling them their escape route is now open. Then, his eyes flare with a terrifying red light as he gives them an ultimatum: run now, or guide him to the Kobo department store. Faced with a man this powerful, driven by something so insane, their minds finally break, and they flee in absolute terror, screaming for someone to save them. With the battle over, he coldly announces it's time to go, but the cosplayer is shocked. He'd expect her to leave dressed like this. The man, a monster on the battlefield, is completely clueless in the face of social decency, unable to understand what's wrong. She desperately gestures to her revealing outfit, showing the bandages underneath his coat and insisting this is a massive problem. He simply decides to wait outside, but she grabs his arm, a flicker of panic in her eyes as she stops him from leaving. As he turns back, she looks down, the adrenaline finally fading as the reality of her situation crashes down on her. Her tough exterior breaks, and with tears in her eyes, she finally admits that after everything she's just been through, she's terrified. He looks back at her, his usual hardened expression softening for just a moment as he takes in her vulnerability. He finds a changing room for her, but its door is smashed in, lying next to the unconscious bodies of her previous tormentors. In a bizarre attempt at chivalry, he holds up a tattered poster as a makeshift door, only for her to catch him peeking right through it. Finally, the unstoppable brawler waits outside on his motorcycle, a silent guardian ready to escort her to their next destination. After the chaos of the convention, the Amida commander waits on his bike, apologizing for the delay to his expected passenger. But the person who emerges is not the cosplayer he saved, but a complete stranger with striking blue hair and a confident smile. The fearsome brawler, who can level entire gangs, is left completely frozen, utterly failing to process what he's seeing. She playfully asks for his opinion on her new clothes, seemingly enjoying his total confusion. His mind finally reboots, but his first and only concern is for his gang jacket, leaving her completely baffled by his priorities. With a sigh, she hands over the pristine uniform, revealing she had it safely with her the entire time. His idea of chivalry is to wordlessly shove a helmet onto her head, gruffly telling her to put it on. With his mysterious new passenger secured, he throws his cape-like jacket over his shoulder and declares it's time to go. The motorcycle roars to life, and the two of them become a streak of light speeding through the night. She begs him to slow down, but he's already locked on to their next destination, a department store that's about to close. Rushing through the city, the Amida commander feels a growing dread something is fundamentally wrong with this place. He pulls over, utterly lost, admitting his sense of direction is bad, but this is a level of unfamiliarity he's never experienced. The people, the signs, the entire atmosphere feels alien, forcing him to question if this is even the Tokyo he knows. As drones patrol the sky, the reality sinks in. He's a relic in a world that has moved on without him. Just as his confusion peaks, his passenger points forward, confidently taking charge of their route. He immediately questions her, but she snaps back, reminding him that he was the one who needed a guide. But with the promise of a massive reward dangling before him, he silences his doubts and floors it. After a blur of unfamiliar streets, she triumphantly announces they've arrived at their destination. But the so-called department store is a massive, Colosseum-like structure that defies all explanation. Stunned into silence, he turns to the girl he now calls Midori, his face a mask of pure disbelief and confusion. He angrily confronts the girl about her terrible sense of direction, but she calmly insists they've arrived. She pulls out a mysterious glowing slate, showing him an article that claims this place went bankrupt and was abandoned over 2 decades ago. The commander is completely lost, questioning what this internet or smartphone even is, his world already beginning to fray at the edges. He laughs it off as impossible, absolutely certain he was standing in this very spot just a few hours ago. But a creeping dread takes hold as her words echo in his mind, forcing him to ask the one question that could shatter his reality. She points to the sky, hammering home the fact that the store closed for good in the year 2000. Then comes the final, world-ending blow. She tells him the current year is 2025. The commander's tough facade crumbles, his mind reeling from a truth too immense to comprehend. As if to mock him, a banner for a 2025 expo flutters in the wind, a final, undeniable confirmation of his displacement. His consciousness plummets into an abyss, as the realization hits him he's not in 1989 anymore. He's a ghost, lost 36 years in the future. All the strange sights, the impossible technology, it all clicks into place as the horrifying math finally adds up in his head. He stands as a ghost in a sea of people lost in their glowing rectangles, their words a foreign language from a future he was never meant to see. The sheer scale of this new world crushes him, a titan of his era now just a lost soul adrift in the endless city. But through the fog of temporal shock, one name cuts through the noise, a memory that ignites a primal terror. The smiling face of Yuki, a little girl waiting for a promise he made in a world that, for him, vanished just hours ago. His mission becomes absolute, overriding everything else as he turns to the blue-haired girl, his eyes landing on her motorcycle. He apologizes with a desperate urgency, explaining he has to find someone and that he's going on ahead. But before he vanishes, he keeps his word, handing her the prize money he promised as payment for her help. With a final thanks, he tears off into the neon-drenched night, a relic from the past riding a machine of the future. She's left stunned, holding a fortune, realizing the man she dismissed as a delusional cosplayer was a legend lost in time. Left alone with a fortune, she can only worry about the strange man who just vanished, a lost soul in a city he can't possibly navigate. But for the commander, there is no time for doubt, only a burning urgency to fulfill a promise that transcends time itself. He tears through the unfamiliar streets, relying on pure instinct as he tries to follow a path that no longer exists. The world around him is an alien landscape of light and steel, but his eyes are fixed on a destination only he can see. Then, the momentum breaks as a chilling realization begins to dawn. The landmarks, the buildings, the very soul of his city is gone, and the brutal truth finally hits him with the force of a physical blow. He is a stranger in his own home. The quiet house he's racing towards is now just a ghost, a memory of a world that has vanished from existence. Meanwhile, the girl decides to take the money and run, thinking she can just lay low and wait for everything to blow over. As she hurriedly packs her bags, a clumsy misstep sends her bumping into a nearby bookshelf. But this is no mere accident. as a book falls to the floor, opening to a page that holds the impossible truth about the legend she just met. Just as she's about to flee, she stops, realizing there's one last precious memory she can't possibly leave behind. Suitcase in hand, she pulls open the door, ready to vanish into the night and escape her troubles for good. But her escape is cut short by a cold, sudden splash across her face, a liquid that feels chillingly familiar. The thugs have found her, and their leader, Meraki, stands with a gas can, a silent promise of the hell that's about to be unleashed. Her eyes widen in absolute horror as she realizes this isn't just a threat, this is an execution. She's completely cornered, an entire gang armed with bats and gasoline cans, sealing off any chance of escape. Meraki gives her one chance to run, sneering that if she stays, she'll burn right along with the house. As his men begin to douse the home in accelerant, she screams in protest, desperate to protect the only place her mother can return to. She grabs onto the massive thug, pleading with him, insisting there's no reason to go to such horrifying lengths. But her desperate pleas are met only with violence, as a brutal backhand sends her flying, a promise of vengeance delivered. But even as the gasoline drips down her face, a sudden, desperate idea sparks in her mind. Ignoring the thugs who mock her, she scrambles to a suitcase, frantically tearing it open to find her last resort. Her hands don't find a weapon, but a photo album, filled with memories she's about to lose forever. From within it, she pulls out a hidden envelope, screaming an offer of 1 million yen, everything she has left in the world. She holds out the money to the massive gang leader, pleading with him to take it and just stop this nightmare. Meraki takes the cash, and for a heart-stopping moment, he actually orders his men to stand down. A flicker of impossible hope appears in her eyes. Could this small fortune actually be enough to buy her life back? But that hope is instantly incinerated by the cold flick of a lighter, as Meraki grins and declares the house will burn anyway. His men slam her to the ground, and the leader's cruel sneer reveals the truth. This was never about the money. He leans down, his voice dripping with malice, telling her this is her punishment, and it's only just begun. A final, soul-shattering scream escapes her lips as she stares up at her executioner. The brute leader glances down, annoyed by her terror, wondering what could possibly be worth screaming about now. But her eyes are fixed above him, on the impossible silhouette of a motorcycle soaring through the air like a guided missile. Meraki barely has time to register the threat before he's forced to swing his weapon, bracing for a cataclysmic impact. A lone rider crashes into their ranks, his bike a whirlwind of steel and vengeance that scatters the thugs like bowling pins. Pinned to the ground, the girl can only watch in stunned silence as a flicker of unbelievable hope ignites within her. Could this phantom from the darkness actually be here to save her? But the rider ignores her completely, his gaze fixed on the gasoline now pooling on the asphalt, the fuel for her funeral pyre. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated rage, his eyes promising a level of pain these thugs have never known. Even Maraki's crew is frozen in disbelief, screaming at the newcomer, demanding to know who this monster is. Encircled by a sea of armed thugs demanding his head, the lone rider remains perfectly still, a storm about to break. Then, with blinding speed, he unleashes a single, devastating kick that shatters bone and sends the first attacker flying. The onlookers can only stare in utter disbelief as their comrades are launched into the air like ragdolls, their bats and pipes completely useless. He dismounts his steel horse, stepping into the heart of the hornet's nest, his low growl a promise of absolute destruction. Another thug rushes forward, only to have his world explode as a fist connects with his jaw, the impact echoing through the alley. While his men recoil in terror and the captive girl weeps, the crew's leader roars in defiance, claiming this territory as his own. But this rage is born from a different time, a memory of this same warrior gently comforting a small, crying girl he once saved. He knelt before her then, not as a monster, but as a guardian, softly telling a little girl named Yuki not to wander off alone. A moment later, his subordinate Joji had rushed in, breathless, having finally found the lost child just as the commander predicted. And Joji, the proud captain of the first squad, had simply grinned, boasting of his speed, a loyal soldier in a forgotten war. Joji reveals the gift had been secretly crafting a simple, handmade bracelet meant to keep the little girl safe. Head pieced it together at his father's bike shop, enduring scoldings just to finish this small token for her. It was a promise, a charm that would ensure that even if she were lost, her big brother would always come for her. The commander then gently presents Yuki, returning her to his subordinate so she can receive her gift. But her reaction is brutal and swift. A deadpan stare, as she declares the bracelet isn't cute, shattering Joji's expectations. Even the commander is stunned, grabbing his loyal soldier in disbelief, questioning how this popular character could possibly fail to impress her. And yet, Her expression suddenly softens, a quiet happiness dawning on her face that catches both hardened warriors completely off guard. She throws her arms around the commander, revealing that she's happy simply because it was a gift from them. Flustered, the commander pushes her to thank the craftsman, and Yuki delivers the words with the most unenthusiastic face imaginable. As Joji moves in for a well-deserved hug, the commander playfully holds him at bay, hoarding the little girl's affection, while sending his man back to work. As his man leaves, the commander's voice echoes a solemn promise to the little girl inside, that he will always come for her. And we see a chilling vision of what that promise means, the commander standing alone amidst a field of broken bodies, a silent guardian who will crush anyone in his path. But his return home is interrupted by a mysterious, grateful voice, thanking him for coming to her aid once again. He turns to find a disheveled and soaking wet young woman he vaguely recognizes, demanding to know what she's doing there. Instead of answering, she angrily asks if he didn't come to rescue her, her tone accusing and desperate. The battle-hardened warrior can only stare back in utter confusion, explaining that he wasn't on a mission, he was just returning to his own home. This revelation shatters her reality, and she trembles in shock, dropping all of her belongings to the ground. Looking down at the mess, the commander simply crosses his arms and questions why she's brought all her luggage. Her eyes widen in dawning horror as she realizes she's made a catastrophic, unbelievable mistake. Frantically, she points to his clothes and his signature hairstyle, unable to comprehend how the man who looks exactly like her hero could be anyone else. Her voice trembles with a mix of hope and desperation as she holds up her phone, asking if this is a photograph of him, a tender moment captured in time where he holds a small, happy child. The scene then shifts, pulling us back through the decades to a quiet, unassuming night in 1989. An old, faded news article appears, detailing a horrific traffic accident in a tunnel just outside of Tokyo. Back in the present, her eyes suddenly widen with a jolt of realization as she exclaims she's finally found it. The commander, hearing her shout, immediately rushes toward the sound, demanding to see what she's uncovered. But he stops dead in his tracks, realizing he's just barged into the bathroom as she stands there, wrapped only in a towel. Without a second's hesitation, she smacks a towel over his head, screaming at him for his sudden intrusion. While he's still blinded, she shoves the phone through the crack in the door, insisting that he look at what she found. He takes the device, a sense of strange familiarity washing over him as he realizes this is the very same image that had the entire town buzzing earlier. He sees an entire city of people mesmerized by these glowing rectangles, a glimpse into a strange, disconnected future. Baffled by the technology, he can only call it a newspaper, unable to comprehend the concept of a smartphone. She explains its godlike capabilities, the internet, games, a world in his palm, but the words are meaningless to a man from a bygone era. But as he reads the screen, the casual explanation turns to horror when he finds an article detailing his own disappearance and presumed death. His mind screams in protest, replaying the near miss with the truck he knows he didn't crash. So why does the world say he's dead and gone? The impossible, terrifying truth finally dawns on him as an image of his bike caught in a vortex of lightning flashes in his mind. He has traveled through time. And with that realization comes a chilling question that freezes his soul. If he's here, in the future, then what happened to the person he left behind? What happened to Yuki? Before he can even process the grief, the girl's hand gently takes the phone, her voice cutting through his panic as she claims to know who he's thinking of. Then, she delivers a statement that shatters his entire world, revealing that Yuki Takakura is her mother. To prove the unbelievable truth, she shows him a small, worn bracelet on her wrist, a keepsake she inherited from the very same girl he's desperately trying to find. His mind reels as he instantly recognizes the bracelet, a personal gift he gave to a little girl, now impossibly worn by the woman claiming to be her daughter. The impossible truth crashes down on him, his mind flashing back to the innocent child he knew. How could she have grown up and become a mother without him? But the girl cuts through his confusion with another shocking revelation. She and her mother, Yuki, weren't even related by blood. As she reveals, Yuki was a dear friend who raised her. Only one question burns in the commander's mind. Where is she now? Her expression grows serious as she admits she wants to find Yuki just as much as he does. But her next words crush his hopes, coldly stating that for some unknown reason, they simply can't. Her face fills with a deep, lingering sorrow as she finally reveals the devastating truth. 3 months ago, Yuki disappeared. A memory plays out from that fateful day, with a younger Haru overhearing her mother on the phone with a mysterious group called Millennium. After that single cryptic phone call, Yuki grabbed her coat and walked out into the night, ignoring her daughter's pleas never to return. Her final words were a whispered apology and a promise to explain everything later, a promise that was swallowed by the darkness. The commander's frustration finally erupts, insisting he's been trying everything in his power to find his lost love. But the girl reveals her own search has hit a dead end. She went to the police, tracked every connection, and found nothing. She admits there's one person who seems to know something, a single lead in this cold case, but they refuse to speak to her. Suddenly, a glimmer of hope appears in her eyes as she realizes there's one person they might be willing to talk to. She tells him it's someone from his own world, and the commander's patience wears thin as he demands a name. The scene cuts to a dark street, where a banner hangs ominously, bearing the name of the mysterious group, Millennium. In a quiet garage, a lone mechanic puts the finishing touches on a scooter repair. The mechanic, a man with a bandaged head named Joji, kindly sends a grateful customer on his way. Joji watches him go, a moment of peace in what seems to be a simple, unassuming life. But that peace is instantly shattered as a voice calls his full name, pulling him directly into the center of this dangerous mystery. The man who called his name isn't here to talk, he's here to break him, landing a devastating punch that cracks the very air around them. Joji crumples from the sheer force of the blow, the shock and pain overwhelming his senses. Looming over his collapsed body, the blonde thug and his crew remind him that he was warned to close up shop for good. This isn't just some street gang. Their leader is Satoshi Ino, a CEO using brute force for his development company. But even on the ground, Joji finds the strength to refuse, demanding to know if these are the orders of the mysterious Millennium. His defiance is met with pure chaos as Satoshi orders his men to smash it all, destroying Joji's life's work right before his eyes. Satoshi grabs him by the collar, sneering that he should have just taken Millennium's generous offer when he had the chance. Fueled by rage, Joji spits back that their tactics are lower than the Yakuza, calling them nothing more than pieces of trash. But Satoshi only laughs, dismissing the old gangs and posing a chilling question about the fate he and this town now share. Suddenly, the roar of an engine tears through the night as a lone figure speeds toward the chaos, the mark of a legendary crew emblazoned on his back. Satoshi scoffs at the old ways, declaring that the world has evolved and left them behind. The bike screams down the street, a lone beacon of hope racing towards the brutal beatdown. Joji's eyes widen in shock and disbelief. Could this be the cavalry he was praying for? It's him, the commander of Amida, roaring through the night that this is their territory. He issues a stark warning. The rest of his legendary crew is on their way, and this is their only chance to run. But his threat is cut short by the sickening crack of a bat against his skull before he can even react. Satoshi moves like lightning, the commander and his bike sent skidding across the pavement in a single, decisive blow. The corporate thug laughs, wondering who this idiot is, as Joji cries out his commander's name in despair. With the hero pinned under his foot, Satoshi grinds his heel down, mocking his belief in outdated manga tropes. He follows with a vicious kick to the face, sneering that the era of biker gangs is long over. Satoshi delivers one final, bone-shattering blow, roaring that the era of biker gangs is nothing but an outdated joke. When one of the commander's loyal men tries to intervene, he's immediately swarmed by thugs and beaten into the pavement. Satoshi then rips the jacket from the commander's body, mocking the very name Amida and the uniform they hold sacred. With a cold smirk, he flicks open a lighter, promising to give their precious symbol a permanent, fiery makeover. The young gang member can only watch in horror, his face bloody and his spirit broken, as their pride is about to be turned to ash. He desperately begs them to stop as the flame inches closer to the jacket, threatening to burn away everything he believes in. But just as the fabric is about to ignite, a sudden, impossible gust of wind blows the flame out, shocking everyone. A lone motorcycle rips through the alley, its speed alone creating the powerful gale that just saved their honor. The entire scene freezes in disbelief, as a new figure steps off the bike, his presence alone commanding the battlefield. And in a flash, the discarded jacket is caught mid-air by a man wearing the very same colors the true leader has finally arrived. The man straightens up, his voice echoing in the alley. It's only been half a day. But for the broken and bloody Joji, that time felt like an absolute eternity of suffering. The Amida 1st Squad captain now stands as a one-man army, his back a shield for his fallen men. He takes a single, heavy step forward, his voice cutting through the tension to name his friend, Joji Nagai. Joji's eyes widen in sheer disbelief, the reality of the situation struggling to form into words. It's him, the man they thought was gone, their one and only leader has returned. The shock sends Joji spiraling into a memory of a time long past, a promise made beneath a setting sun. A time when his own future was simple to run the family bike shop, while his friend's path was completely unknown. He remembers them by the river, when the boy who would become a legend confessed he couldn't even picture growing up. But even back then, he placed his unwavering trust in Joji, knowing their shared passion would be in good hands. He remembered his leader's unwavering faith, a simple belief that with Joji around, the future was secure. But that future was incinerated in a blast of fire and twisted metal, a tragedy that supposedly ended it all. Snapping back to the present, though only half a day has passed since this fight began, it feels like an eternity of loss. Joji, the man who held the gang together as captain of the 1st Division, can't comprehend what he's seeing. The legendary commander returns, his back a wall of protection as he finally calls out his old friend's name. The single word boss escapes Joji's lips, a mix of pure shock and a flicker of impossible hope. But his mind rebels against his eyes, screaming that this can't be real. Because the man standing before them, their legendary leader, died in an accident 30 years ago. The current thug in charge scoffs, seeing only another biker punk to be smashed with his bat. Yet with a single, contemptuous stomp, the commander proves he is a ghost from a far more violent era. The thug's arrogant swing is met not with flesh, but with an unbreakable wall as his bat shatters against the commander's foot. With cold contempt, the commander questions the fool who dared to raise a weapon against him. A single, brutal backhand sends the gang leader flying, his mind unable to process the sheer speed of his own defeat. As his crew watches in horror, the commander stands over their fallen leader, an untouchable demon of the streets. Joji's men can only tremble and ask who this monster is, but Joji himself is frozen by an impossible thought. He can't answer, watching as the mysterious man carves through the remaining thugs with terrifying ease. Because that legendary uniform and that brutal, efficient fighting style, it's a perfect match for the man who should be dead. In moments, the entire crew is brought to its knees, their weapons and their pride broken on the asphalt. The commander turns his back on the carnage, the gold lettering of a ghost crew shining in the night. Finally, Joji finds his voice, stepping forward to confront the impossible, demanding to know just who the hell he is. Instead of answering, the mysterious man shatters the tension with a secret only a ghost should know. His men can only stare in confusion as their leader stammers, his mind unable to process this impossible intimacy. The commander continues, reciting another memory from their shared past, the name of Joji's very first motorcycle. He recounts the exact story of how it was found, and as he speaks, the hardened mechanic's defenses begin to crumble. A memory floods Joji's mind, a vision of two boys working side by side, their bond forged in grease and dreams. Back in the present, the dam of grief finally breaks, and tears stream down his face as he stares at the friend he thought he'd lost forever. He grabs the man he now knows as Goro, his long-lost brother. But the commander's return isn't a social call, it's a mission. His eyes burn with a desperate fire as he asks a single, world-stopping question. Do you know where Yuki is? But before an answer can be given, a new voice cuts through the night. A young woman casually stepping over the bodies of the fallen. She calls herself Haruka, confirming that this impossible reunion is real, and that she holds the key to the entire mystery. Joji processes the impossible reunion, the weight of the past finally catching up to him. The commander turns to lead them inside, ready to unravel a story years in the making. But the moment of peace is shattered by the cold bite of a blade and a violent spray of blood. A fleeting memory of a promise is broken by the brutal reality of Joji being stabbed from behind. He looks down in disbelief, his hand trembling as it's slicked with his own blood. The attacker, driven by desperation, screams that his failure will get him killed by a group called Millennium. But before he can even finish his threat, the commander unleashes a terrifying stomp, a pure display of overwhelming force. The fight is over in an instant, as the assailant is sent flying from a single, brutal kick. Goro's composure shatters as he rushes to his friend's side, screaming for someone to call an ambulance. Yet even as he bleeds out, Joji grabs his friend's arm, telling his long-lost brother not to worry. With his last ounce of strength, Joji gasps out a chilling warning, "Be careful of Millennium and a man named Resetsu Shuhei." He then mutters another name, Yuki, leaving the commander completely lost in the face of this cryptic plea. But before he can ask another question, Joji's bloody hand falls limp, his body goes cold, and a desperate scream echoes into the night. The scene cuts to the cold, unforgiving lights of a hospital emergency room, where life itself is on the line. Joji lies unconscious, hooked up to a ventilator, having barely survived the most critical stage of his injury. The commander is left alone in the waiting room, burdened by the heavy truth that his friend's survival is now a matter of sheer will. His mind races, replaying the warning over and over, trying to decipher the connection between these new, unknown enemies. And in his thoughts, the face of a smiling, white-haired man emerges. Just who in the world is Resetsu? His dark contemplation is suddenly broken by the appearance of a canned coffee, an unexpected gesture of kindness. The man he saved at the convention, Sendo Keisuke, has found him, finally able to properly thank the one who saved his life. The commander awkwardly refuses the coffee, but Sendo is left completely baffled by the reaction. Without another word, he chugs the drink anyway. a silent acceptance of this strange moment of camaraderie. Sitting together, he finally asks the question on his mind. Where did he get that uniform? And is the old Amida gang still active? Sendo bashfully explains that it's a custom job he had made, inspired by a single photograph he saw. His true motivation is revealed a deep, burning desire to grow up into a man as cool and respected as Joji. The commander pulls out a worn photo from his past, confirming it's the very one that inspired the kid. But as he points out the familiar faces, the image of the white-haired man, Shuhei Rosetsu, sends a jolt through him. Just then, a mysterious girl appears holding the exact same photo, revealing she's been investigating the connection between Rosetsu and a group called Millennium. She pulls up an old news article, delivering a shocking truth. Rosetsu wasn't just a delinquent, he was the founder of a major corporation. Before they can process this revelation, their quiet corner of the hospital is invaded by two imposing men in suits, whose arrival spells nothing but trouble. With a sharp snap of his fingers, a man in a crisp suit introduces himself as the legal chief for Millennium Construction. Their polished shoes echo through the hospital as they stride directly toward Sendo, their target clearly identified. Surrounding the small group, they offer a get-well-soon bouquet, a chillingly polite gesture meant to address the trouble their corporation caused. Sendo can only stare in stunned silence, completely overwhelmed by the sudden arrival of these imposing figures. The chief explains that while headquarters normally stays out of these affairs, this time, a special order came directly from the top. One of his massive subordinates steps forward, presenting an envelope with 2 million yen, a settlement meant to buy their silence. But the young man, his voice trembling but firm, asks if this money will solve the true problem, the redevelopment that threatens his future. The chief's expression hardens as he coldly dismisses the boy's plea, prompting Sendo to defiantly reject their hollow offer. Instantly, the corporate facade drops as a goon grabs Sendo by the collar, snarling at the little brat to watch his mouth. As he raises a hand to strike, the thug reminds him of his place when adults are talking. Kids are expected to shut up and obey. But just as the blow is about to land, a scarred, powerful hand clamps down on the goon's wrist, stopping him dead. The Amida commander stands firm, his voice dangerously calm as he repeats that he's not taking their money, enraging the corporate thug. The goon strains with all his might, but he's met with a wall of immovable strength, a level of power that completely freezes him in place. Seeing their man overpowered, the rest of the suited goons surge forward, ready to turn this into an all-out war right in the hospital hallway. But before the first punch is thrown, another hand intercepts the attack, bringing the chaos to a sudden halt. Their leader, Yamamoto, steps between them, his voice smooth as he reminds the commander that this is a hospital, a place for quiet. With the physical confrontation diffused, he adjusts his glasses and issues a chilling ultimatum. Refusing this offer now will have dire consequences. His polite mask shatters, revealing a cold, merciless gaze as he promises that a top executive will personally come to settle this. The sheer weight of that threat hangs in the air, causing Sendo and his friend to flinch back, realizing they've just provoked a monster. Yamamoto's eyes narrow into a venomous glare as he asks if they're truly prepared for the hell they are about to unleash. As Yamamoto's threat hangs heavy, two black sedans cut through the night, carrying the very doom he promised. Inside, an executive with a sword tattooed on his arm reviews a report, his dragon-inked neck marking him as a man of immense power. Yamamoto is on the line, formally reporting to his superior about the insubordination he encountered at the hospital. The man on the other end coldly inquires if the issue with the bike shop has been resolved, his voice laced with authority. This is Momoi Yuichiro, an executive director for Millennium Construction, and he's just been told his old friends have refused to yield. He glances at photos of a past he once shared with them, a time of brotherhood and dreams, before giving a single, cold-blooded command: crush them. Hearing their final defiance, his mind is made up there is no other way this can possibly end. With a face devoid of all emotion, Momoi, the man who was once their brother, repeats the order to annihilate everything they've built. His subordinate calmly confirms the kill order, promising to handle the cleanup quietly and away from the prying eyes of the media. Back at the hospital, the commander hangs up the phone, the unspoken finality of the call, leaving his crew staring in shock and absolute dread. With a condescending smile, the man in the suit adjusts his tie, deciding their business is concluded for the day. As his corporate thugs escort him out, he leaves the Amida crew with a chilling promise that this is far from over. The commander explodes in rage, ready to lunge forward until the girl beside him desperately tries to hold him back. But his fury is cut short by a nurse's urgent cry, a sudden, panicked call for his injured friend's guardian. Powerless, he can only watch his enemies walk away, forced to choose between revenge and his fallen brother. The true scale of the threat now becomes clear. as the name Millennium looms over their entire district, swallowing everything. Back at their hideout, the girl reveals the first piece of the puzzle. Her mother vanished mysteriously right after a call with that same company. She explains that Joji's final warning was about Millennium's founder, a legendary delinquent king known only as Resetsu Shuhei. Slamming her fist down, she questions the very motive. Why would a titan of industry focus all its power on crushing one small bike shop? The answer is as simple as it is terrifying. Millennium's influence is absolute, and their little shop is standing in the way of its total conquest. She reveals Millennium's brutal method, buying up the entire district with mountains of cash, giving residents insultingly small payouts to force them out. But a few brave souls, with Joji at the forefront, refused to bow to the corporate titan and held out until the very end. The commander listens, his expression hardening as he understands that for his friend, this was never just a simple shop. In a flash, he sees Joji's past, a place built on the dreams of his father, a legacy forged in sweat and determination. He remembers their own history there, the days when the future legends of the street were just boys sharing a dream. That little bike shop was their sanctuary, the very heart of the Amida, where their brotherhood was born. Returning to the present, she explains that with the media catching on, and a few holdouts remaining, there's a sliver of hope. But she warns that a monster like Millennium won't be stopped by bad press. Their next move is coming, and it will be merciless. He sits in silence, processing it all, when a sudden sound from outside cuts through the tense air, drawing his attention. And in that moment, his purpose becomes clear. Raising the flag of Amida, he realizes there is only one way to fight back. Just as the decision is made, a new force arrives, Sendo Keisuke and his friends, on a scooter and a kick scooter, proudly announcing the reformation of Amida. The commander and the girl can only stare in stunned silence at the bizarre, underwhelming crew that has answered the call to war. While he's baffled by this turn of events, she seems almost resigned, as if she expected nothing less than this level of absurdity. She immediately points them out, dismissing the ragtag group as a bunch of gloomy nerds who will be completely useless in a real fight. Her expression hardens as she reminds him of the impossible stakes. Their enemy is the corporate giant Millennium, and this is no time for jokes. But the commander's voice cuts through the doubt, declaring that Amida does not choose its members based on their appearance or strength. He lays down the law of the gang. As long as you have the pride to walk your own path, you are a comrade, and he demands to know if they have that resolve. One of the new members speaks up, not of his fighting ability, but of Keisuke's kindness, how he has a good friend who shares his snacks. The other chimes in about borrowed manga, their voices uniting to declare that for a friend, they would do absolutely anything. Moved by a loyalty that transcends power, the commander pulls his new, unlikely brothers into a fierce embrace, the true heart of Amida reborn. Their burning friendship pierces the commander's heart, bringing the stoic leader to tears in an emotional embrace. But the blue-haired girl looks on completely deadpan, wondering if she's stumbled into some old-school youth drama. She declares she wants no part of this and storms off, leaving the commander to lead his new, unconventional members. With their new allegiance sworn, two of the boys awkwardly ask the legendary fighter if he'll teach them his ways. The commander, however, looks back in confusion, reminding them that their first mission isn't to get stronger, but to find more allies. Just then, one of the new recruits pulls out his phone with a smile, revealing that a video of the commander is blowing up online. On the screen is the aftermath of his last battle, a brutal, one-sided brawl that has been captured and spread by the internet's algorithm. The public has already given him a title befitting his power, Biker Bro Who Beats Your Guts Back into Shape. Utterly clueless about modern tech, the commander stares at the phone and asks his baffled underling where the videotape goes. But as he watches, a comment from a complete stranger fades into view, asking the biker bro to teach them how to fight. The comment wasn't just a random post, it was a desperate plea typed by trembling hands, a final hope that this legendary biker bro could fix his broken life. That plea came from a boy hiding in a bathroom stall, his face a mask of quiet despair, clutching his phone as his only connection to the outside world. But his moment of peace is shattered as a torrent of water crashes over the door, a cold, sudden shock meant to break his spirit. Panic erupts into a raw scream as he's left drenched and cornered, his safe haven instantly transformed into a humiliating trap. The door explodes inward from a vicious kick, sending him flying across the stall. His tormentors have found him, and the hunt is over. He crashes to the grimy floor, his bag spilling its contents as a single white envelope skitters across the tiles. His abuser smirks triumphantly, not at him, but into a camera, proudly declaring mission success to a live audience cheering on the brutal humiliation. Because this isn't just bullying. It's content, a live broadcast where his suffering is the main event, and the views are climbing by the second. The stream's twisted title is revealed: The School Creep Reform Project, a public justification to torture a helpless victim for online fame. His tormentor grabs him by the hair, hissing with satisfaction as he reminds the crying boy that he was never supposed to show his face here again. His mind flashes back to a single moment, a choice that led him here, when his bullies first recognized his talent for hacking. They had made him an offer hack, an illegal gambling site, and they'd give him money and protection, confident the victims couldn't fight back. But he refused, his voice trembling as he explained he was a white hat, a good guy who couldn't cross that line. Their answer was simple and cruel, threatening to plunge his precious laptop into a bucket of water, destroying his entire world in an instant. A desperate scramble, a panicked shout to stop them, as the livestream's comment section fills with confusion over the sudden chaos. Snapping back to the present, he's on the ground, surrounded, panting in the puddle of his own humiliation. Tears stream down his face as he clutches the computer, his voice cracking as he begs them not to touch the only thing he has left. His pathetic defiance only enrages them, their faces twisting with disgust as they decide to teach him a final lesson. A fist flies towards his face, a brutal strike meant to shatter not just his glasses, but his very spirit. But the punch is stopped cold, caught by an iron grip from a figure in a black coat, an unexpected savior who has just entered the fray. The bullies move in for the final blow, completely ignoring the students' tearful pleas to be left alone. But their leader is suddenly stopped, his arm caught in an iron grip by a mysterious man in a strange coat. They mock the newcomer's bizarre outfit, dismissing him as a cosplayer, but the victim's eyes widen with dawning recognition. A flash of pure terror crosses the bully's face as he realizes exactly who has just crashed their party. With a triumphant shout of "Biker Bro," the commander delivers a single, devastating blow that echoes through the livestream. His hand extends, a finger pointing like an executioner's sentence, singling out the trash before him. A furious roar erupts from him, condemning them for taking pleasure in the pain of the weak. But as this scene of brutal justice unfolds, a young woman with blue hair is seen rushing through the city with an urgent discovery. She bursts into a garage, shouting a name, claiming to have found something incredible hidden within the livestream's footage. Her words are met by the back of a high-ranking Amida executive, who wonders just what kind of trouble is knocking at his door now. She mutters to herself, frustrated that with everyone gone, the shop has been left completely undefended. Sensing a sudden, chilling shift in the air, she turns to the executive she came to for help. But the man barely acknowledges her, his back still turned as he calmly listens to the rising chaos outside. Because at that very moment, the roar of heavy machinery echoes as massive trucks blockade the entire street. An army of workers, armed not for construction but for demolition, marches forward with cold, unified purpose. Inside the now trapped bike shop, the remaining crew descends into panic, screaming for someone to call for backup. A horrifying realization strikes the girl, and the vital documents she was holding slip from her trembling hands. Scattered across the floor is the undeniable proof she'd just uncovered the face of the man standing right before her, director Momoe Yuichiro. He looks down, a strange nostalgia in his voice as she finally connects him to the enemy Millennium Construction. And with a chilling, predatory smile, he confirms her worst fears. The man she came to for protection is the very demon orchestrating their destruction. Desperate, she makes her final stand, screaming about the media and the innocent people whose lives are about to be destroyed. But Momoe Yuichiro simply stares back, his face a cold, unreadable mask of utter indifference. With a chilling finality that crushes her last sliver of hope, he asks, "So what?" dismissing the value of human life as if it were nothing. Elsewhere, a different kind of power is set in motion, as a critical mission is given with only one chance for success. The legendary Amida commander and his loyal men look up, accepting the impossible task with unwavering determination. But before the storm, a quiet moment of camaraderie as they argue over how to best write the name that will become their declaration of war. The commander, a titan on the battlefield, is hilariously called out by his own men for his terrible handwriting. One of his lieutenants steps up, taking the massive brush himself, ready to craft the symbol of their rebellion. With a single, deliberate dip, he prepares to paint their identity for all the world to see. And there it is, Amitabha, a name painted in gold, a warning to their enemies that the true kings of the street are about to make their move. The men share a moment of levity, teasing their executive, Momoe Yuichiro, whose hidden calligraphy skills seem completely at odds with his ruthless reputation. With their declaration of war finally painted, the commander and his crew proudly hoist their new banner, ready to unleash their fury upon the city. But their moment of triumph immediately sours as they realize their legendary banner is dripping. A distant voice scolds them for their impatience, a seemingly minor mistake that hints at the chaos to come. Elsewhere, a lone figure walks with purpose, his steady steps echoing through the streets, as he approaches a place tied to his past. Meanwhile, a video circulates online, capturing the legendary Amida commander in a moment of raw fury, roaring defiance against those who prey on the weak. Two young delinquents watch the clip in awe, idolizing the very man whose name strikes fear into the hearts of so many others. As they dream of achieving that same level of power, a chilling shadow falls over them, a silent presence that has already breached their defenses. The door to their hideout slides open, not with a friendly knock, but with the ominous creak of an unwelcome intrusion. And standing in the doorway is a familiar face from the Amida gang, but his expression carries no camaraderie, only the cold promise of violence. But the man who entered stands behind a closed door, his silence more terrifying than any threat. Inside, the two young thugs who idolize the Amida commander are reduced to whimpering cowards, arguing over whose fault it is. They see the face of a true predator, mistaking him for a millennium yakuza, and realizing they are hopelessly out of their league. Their tough guy act completely crumbles as they try to push each other out to face him, neither willing to be the sacrifice. The intruder, however, pays them no mind, his heavy footsteps echoing as he moves deeper into their territory with a cold purpose. His hand closes around the handle of an inner door, the simple click of the latch signaling a point of no return. He pauses for a moment, his gaze fixed on the room he's about to enter, as if sensing something is wrong. But what he finds inside isn't a gangster's den, it's a shrine, with a banner and a photo dedicated to his own crew, the Amida. His face twists with confusion and rage, trying to process why his gang's legacy is being worshipped by these wannabes. Just then, a girl runs out calling for her friends, her words dying in her throat as she comes face to face with the furious executive. The crew's bravado shatters as they realize a Millennium executive is here, and they're powerless to act with Miss Mizuno in the room. A wave of pure killing intent washes over them, freezing the two wannabe gangsters with absolute, paralyzing fear. But the executive, Momoe Yuichiro, is completely unfazed by their presence, dismissing them with a single, contemptuous question. The blue-haired girl's joyful shout dies in her throat, replaced by a scream of terror as she finally grasps the danger. Her mind flashes to an unstoppable excavator, a grim omen of the complete and utter destruction about to be unleashed. Momoe calmly brushes his shoulder, his voice laced with venom as he compares them to something worthless like dust. As his men drag the struggling girl forward, he explains that dust is a nuisance that clings to you and ruins your image. He looks down at his captive with chilling indifference, musing on the simple solution for such an insignificant problem. With a sadistic grin, he reveals his final answer. You wipe it away completely, as a heavy piece of furniture is sent flying across the room. And with a deafening crash, the sacred photo of the Amida is shattered, a violent and symbolic execution of their pathetic little fan club. He calls their sanctuary a depressing little shop, bringing his heel down to crush what's left of their dreams. With a final, contemptuous twist, he grinds their precious photos into the floor, erasing their legacy completely. Turning his back on the devastation, he coldly orders his men to finish the cleanup, the girl still a helpless captive. But inside, the remaining fans desperately try to escape, their hands fumbling with a doorknob that refuses to budge. The horrifying realization dawns on them: the impact has warped the doorframe, sealing them inside their own tomb. Outside, his goons close in on the terrified girl, their leering questions a promise of a fate worse than death. Her mind flashes back to another time, another hand silencing her terrified screams, a past trauma she's being forced to relive. Momoe watches impassively as his demolition crew marches forward, sledgehammers in hand, ready to bring the entire building down. For him, this isn't just about a gang, this is the final, violent erasure of a miserable past he can no longer stand. But just as one tragedy unfolds, another is discovered, as a student stumbles upon the broken body of Sendo Keisuke in a school hallway. Just as all hope seems lost, an imposing figure in a gang coat bursts in, announcing he's here to save the student, who can only stare in confusion. With the other bullies already broken and scattered across the floor, the newcomer reflects on his own past, where this kind of senseless violence was unheard of. His face contorts with rage as he tries to comprehend the scene of humiliation and cruelty before him. But the true sickness is revealed as he sees the livestream comments hundreds of people are watching, even donating money to see the violence continue. The world he once knew is gone, replaced by a twisted reality he can no longer recognize. Arrogantly, the lead bully gets back to his feet, mocking the man's biker gang aesthetic and dismissing him as just another unskilled brawler. Deciding to put on a show for his viewers, the bully grabs a mop and swings it with killing intent, aiming to take down this unexpected intruder. But with a single, devastating punch, the commander doesn't just stop the attack, he sends the bully flying backwards with enough force to shatter the entire window. The live streamer is launched out of the building, plummeting to the ground below, as his friend can only watch in frozen terror. Steam rises from a single knuckle, as the commander turns his cold, silent gaze to the last bully standing, who now realizes he is trapped with a monster. The bully lies broken on the pavement outside, his livestream career ended by a single, terrifying strike. His friend can only stare in disbelief, realizing the man who just saved him isn't a brawler, he's a monster of a completely different caliber. But the sound of rushing footsteps echoes from the hall. This fight is far from over. Suddenly, the door is kicked wide open, and the true scale of the problem reveals itself. Dozens of the bully's friends storm into the room, their faces twisted with rage, demanding to know who dared to touch their leader. Before they can even finish their threats, one of their vanguard is already on the floor, bleeding and unconscious, taken down in the blink of an eye. Undeterred, the faceless mob of delinquents stands their ground, arrogantly questioning his right to lay a hand on one of their own. With a unified roar, the entire swarm charges forward, determined to bury this lone protector under a wave of bodies. The commander shoves the students behind him, ordering them to escape, but one of the kids bravely offers to stand and fight alongside his savior. But even for a man of his power, the reality of the situation sets in. Facing this many opponents, he knows he can't possibly protect everyone. Realizing they're just liabilities, the bullied student tearfully tells his friend to run, leaving their savior to face the horde alone. The commander doesn't waste a single moment, vaulting over a downed enemy and leaping straight out the classroom window. As Keisuke follows, he's bewildered when the student leads him away from the main school gate, towards an unknown escape route. The two boys sprint for their lives, their only hope resting on the man who stayed behind to hold the impossible line. And back inside, the commander unleashes hell, a single fist shattering the momentum of their unified charge. He plants his foot, an anchor of absolute power amidst the chaos, refusing to give a single inch of ground. Then he plows forward, a human cannonball tearing a violent path through the stunned crowd of delinquents. The remaining students are frozen in terror, their minds unable to comprehend the monstrous power they've just witnessed. When one dares to stand in his path, he's casually backhanded out of the way, dismissed with utter contempt. As the bully stumbles back bleeding, the commander's cold glare says that all this weakness is exactly why they'll always be losers. He continues to carve a path through the mob, sending another student flying with a single, bone-shattering punch. But the commander pauses, sensing a different level of power finally entering the fray, and for the first time, he looks intrigued. Suddenly, a new challenger appears, Haramoto Kichi, the giant who effortlessly catches his fist and declares his luck has run out. Without a word, the commander ignores the threat and immediately smashes a clean right hook across the giant's jaw. Haramoto catches the next blow with contempt, complaining that he was trying to talk. But the commander has no time for games. He coldly reminds the boss that his own men were the ones who ganged up on him first, throwing his hypocrisy back in his face. Enraged by the disrespect, Haramoto loads up a punch, ready to finally end this humiliating display. But he's far too slow, as the commander unleashes a brutal flurry of body blows that stagger the giant. The watching students are completely frozen, their minds unable to process the sight of their invincible leader being overwhelmed. Even the live streamer realizes this has escalated far beyond a schoolyard scuffle, capturing a legendary battle between two monsters. The commander, despite his dominance, feels a strange resistance, a power he can't quite comprehend pushing back. Meanwhile, the giant Haramoto is completely floored. This man's strength defies all logic, a power that shouldn't even be on his level. But suddenly, the commander is rocked by a bizarre surge of energy, a crackle of blue lightning emanating from his own fists. The feeling is terrifyingly familiar, a memory of a lightning-wreathed motorcycle thundering out of the distant past. Distracted by the vision, he struggles to focus as Haramoto seizes the opening, launching a desperate counterattack. The blow lands clean, a brutal impact that should have been easily avoided, rattling him to his very core. His mind is violently dragged back through time, to the golden age of the Amida gang in 1989, a past he thought he'd left behind. He fights back against the temporal pull with all his might, refusing to be erased from the present. With a roar, he channels the strange energy, anchoring himself to the now, screaming that he still has a promise to fulfill. Because in this timeline, a little girl is still waiting for her big brother to come home. The world inverts as the commander's senses flare, a strange energy distorting his perception of the man before him. He stares down at his own fist, bewildered, as an impossible blue lightning crackles uncontrollably across his knuckles. A vision floods his mind, a memory of a phantom rider wreathed in the same temporal storm, a feeling he can't escape. But the past offers no defense in the present, and Haramoto seizes the opening, smashing a brutal fist into his face while he struggles to focus. The bully presses his advantage, mocking the commander's sudden weakness as he hammers him from behind with another devastating blow. The students can only watch in confusion, unable to comprehend why the legendary fighter is suddenly flickering like a ghost, surrounded by static. Haramoto roars, convinced his opponent is finished, questioning what a single, fading man could possibly hope to achieve. He winds up for another vicious strike, determined to end this one-sided beatdown once and for all. But the commander stumbles, his body failing him, a terrifying numbness spreading through his limbs as his connection to this time begins to sever. His very form starts to destabilize, his feet crackling with temporal energy as he is quite literally being erased from existence. Just as the final, bone-shattering blow is about to land, the commander can only brace for an impact he can no longer dodge. But instead of his face, the bully's fist connects with something hard and metallic, a drone that intercepts the attack out of absolutely nowhere. The sheer force of the collision sends Haramoto sprawling to the ground, his attack completely neutralized by the bizarre intervention. The commander, still flickering between timelines, can only stare in utter bewilderment, trying to process what just saved him. On the floor lie the shattered remains of the strange machine, leaving him to wonder where it could have possibly flown in from. Haramoto stumbles to his feet, clutching his now bloody nose, furiously demanding to know which of the students dared to interfere. But it wasn't a student. Suddenly, a massive swarm of drones descends into the hallway, surrounding the fading warrior in a protective vortex. A much larger, more advanced drone hovers before him, and from it, a familiar voice calls out his real name, Goro Takakura. He looks up in disbelief, recognizing the voice of an old friend, desperately questioning what is happening and where he is. The drone's camera focuses, and the voice simply replies that they are somewhere safe, a cryptic message from a future he can no longer reach. The source of this impossible intervention is revealed: the high school's unassuming robotics club. Inside, Sendo Keisuke frantically explains that the bullied student he rescued is the one remotely piloting the entire swarm. The student, Rokaru, sits before a staggering array of hijacked controllers, revealing he's integrated an AI to assist his flight program. With a terrifyingly calm smile, he declares that the drones have become an extension of himself, granting him control over every electronic device on campus. Back in the hall, his words are relayed to Haramoto, who can't comprehend the technological onslaught surrounding him and his men. But the brute simply scoffs at the distraction, roaring at the fading commander to run while he handles these flying toys. The swarm descends, and his underlings scream in panic, completely overwhelmed by the precision assault. Haramoto, however, is a different breed of monster, smashing through the drones with his bare fists and a look of pure contempt. He effortlessly bats another one out of the air, mocking the pathetic attempt to stop him with such flimsy machines. But just as his victory seems certain, a far larger and more menacing machine powers up behind him, the robotics club's masterpiece, the Cerberus Model 3. From the control room, the bullied student declares it's time for his tormentors to suffer, a look of chilling satisfaction on his face. Back in the hall, the colossal Cerberus robot lurches to life, sending the remaining goons scattering in absolute terror. The commander can only stare in disbelief, his reality crumbling as he's confronted by technology that shouldn't exist. Suddenly, a strange electrical energy surges through him, his own body beginning to glitch and phase out of existence. He watches his own hand flicker like a dying light, a terrifying sign that his time in this world is coming to an end. But instead of fading, he clenches his fist, channeling the distortion into raw power, a grim smile forming as he declares he's finally wide awake. With an aura of pure intimidation, he announces that he has his own business to take care of, and he refuses to fall back now. In a flash, he explodes from his position, leaving only a cratered shockwave in the floor where he once stood. He soars past the stunned Haramoto with impossible speed, revealing he has someone he absolutely must find. And with a devastating elbow drop that shatters the ground, he crashes down on a helpless bully, roaring for everyone to stay out of his way. The bully's world goes dark, his consciousness shattered by a single, brutal strike. Looming over his victim stands the legendary commander, a ghost from a bygone era, surrounded by impossible, buzzing machines of war. But as one thug falls, a far greater evil descends upon the city, as Millennium's enforcers begin their violent takeover. Innocent citizens are caught in the crossfire, their desperate pleas for mercy completely ignored by the ruthless construction crew. Even Haruka's friend is cornered by these monsters, her cries for help swallowed by the chaos as they leer over her. From the shadows, a lone observer watches in horror, powerless as the situation spirals completely out of control. But she refuses to be a victim, lashing out with the only weapon she has in a desperate act of defiance. Her bravery is met with nothing but pure, unadulterated violence, a brutal slap that rings out through the street. Back at the school, The lead tormentor can only stare at his fallen friend, his mind unable to process how their simple plan went so wrong. And a chilling memory surfaces a time when this same monster, Takakura Goro, acted like a hero, forcing him to question what has truly been unleashed. The lone observer realizes with dawning horror that the world he knows is crumbling into senseless violence right before his eyes. Millennium's thugs close their grip on Midori, threatening to teach her a lesson with the very trucks meant to demolish the city. But just as the goon makes his move, a sudden, powerful impact stops him dead in his tracks. Exploding from the sidelines, the Amida fanboy unleashes a devastating blow, sending the thug flying as he roars for them to get away from her. He barrels through the remaining goons with the ferocity of a wild beast, leaving nothing but stunned enemies in his wake. Inspired by this impossible courage, another man, Yamamoto, snaps, grabbing the nearest weapon he can find with murderous intent. He brings a shovel down with a sickening crack, a desperate strike against the overwhelming tide of violence. But the rush of adrenaline is instantly replaced by sheer terror as he realizes what he's just done, his mind screaming in panic. Seizing the opening, Midori unleashes her own fury, delivering a crippling low kick that finds its mark with brutal precision. And in that single, electrifying moment, the goon's world shatters into a universe of pure, unimaginable pain. The Millennium Goon crumples in agony, his friends staring in disbelief as they realize they've picked a fight they can't win. But before they can even process the attack, the blonde Amida fanboy crashes into them with the force of a wrecking ball, a human battering ram of pure loyalty. With a single, devastating kick, he sends the thugs flying through the storefront, shattering glass and scattering bodies like bowling pins. Just then, two powerful figures emerge from the chaos, executives who look down on the aftermath with an aura of absolute authority. Yet the scene they witness is bizarre. The ferocious fighter is now weeping, clinging to Midori as his allies stare in utter confusion. The executives scoff at the sight of his outdated gang jacket, dismissing him as a wannabe thug who crawled out from under a rock. But as they look closer, a jolt of recognition hits them. That jacket, with the emblem of the legendary Amida gang, is something they haven't seen in years. The manager orders his men to finish the job, but a single, silent gesture from his superior freezes him in his tracks, a clear display of the pecking order. Oblivious to the new threat, the fanboy desperately tries to protect Midori, who furiously pushes back against the escalating madness. And the scarred veteran can only let out a weary sigh, a flicker of nostalgia in his eyes as he realizes he's just dealing with a bunch of kids playing gangster. He scoffs at their childish games, and with a single, bone-shattering stomp, crushes the fanboy for daring to play hero. The two are sent scraping across the asphalt, the force of the blow leaving them utterly helpless on the ground. Because to him, that jacket is nothing but a painful memory of an old friend who ran wild and then disappeared without a trace. He looms over them, his voice dripping with contempt, seeing them as nothing more than pathetic copies of a man who abandoned his ideals. With another ferocious kick aimed straight for the kid's head, he unleashes all his pent-up fury on the symbol of his past. His rage finally boils over as he screams a name from his history, Joji, a man he believes is still living in a dead and buried world. Midori desperately clings to his arm, pleading for him to stop before he commits murder right here in the street. But with no hesitation, he violently shoves her aside, his rage completely consuming him. Dazed and in pain, she can only ask why. What grudge could he possibly hold against her family and their old friend? And then, through tears, she reveals his name, Mr. Momo, shattering the illusion of a simple street fight and exposing a deep, forgotten friendship. That single name freezes him in his tracks, a ghost from a past he thought was long dead. But his shock instantly twists back into pure rage as he violently grabs the girl who dared to speak it. He screams at her, demanding to know how a nobody like her could possibly know his real name. Then another voice cuts through the chaos, a voice he recognizes, a voice that calls him by his full name, Yuichiro. A heavy boot plants itself on the asphalt as a motorcycle comes to a sudden, ominous stop. And a legendary shadow falls over the entire scene. The true commander of Amida, a man thought to be a myth, has finally appeared. Yuichiro's face drains of all color as he stammers out a name he never thought he'd say again, Takakura Goro. The world blurs, and we're thrown back in time, to the moment a young Yuichiro was sent crashing to the ground by an unstoppable force. Standing over his broken body was not a friend, but a monster in a school uniform, ready to deliver another brutal blow. This was Takakura Goro in his youth, a middle schooler who had already perfected the art of absolute domination. Kneeling amidst the bodies of his fallen crew, a younger Yuichiro can only ask the monster before him how he became so impossibly strong. Back in middle school, Yuichiro was known for his old-looking face, but even he was just a child before the absolute might of Takakura. Instead of an answer, Goro crouches down and speaks of his little sister, a bizarre and unexpected confession on a battlefield. His motivation is revealed in a flash of memory, a smiling little girl he wants to protect, to give a decent world to. And for her sake, he will become an unstoppable force, a demon destined to crush every single rotten delinquent who stands in his way. But then he turns the question back on Yuichiro, a simple, cutting inquiry that strikes at the core of his identity. Why do you fight, when you're a delinquent too? Yuichiro freezes, the question echoing in his mind, leaving him utterly speechless and exposed. Without waiting for a reply, Goro explodes forward with a punch that shatters the very air between them. The devastating impact sends Yuichiro flying like a ragdoll, crashing through a mountain of steel scaffolding with bone-shattering force. And as he lies broken and bleeding on the concrete, he finally understands the absolute chasm between their power, a lesson carved into his very soul. The story flashes back to their first meeting, where Goro sits with the defeated Yuichiro, speaking not of victory, but of a simple iron pipe. Instead of a final blow, he points down at his enemy, declaring him a good person underneath it all. He offers a hand, an invitation to a beaten foe to rise up and join his grand ambition. Yuichiro is left completely stunned, his mind short-circuiting at the impossible turn of events. As Goro turns to leave, Yuichiro scrambles up, shouting his full name in a desperate attempt to reclaim his dignity. But in the present day, that past is a distant memory, as the commander blazes through the streets on a mission. His destination, the scene where a hardened, merciless Yuichiro now grabs a terrified young woman by the hair. Goro carves a path through the city, scattering pedestrians and traffic in a desperate race against time. His bike screams to a halt, the name Yuichiro echoing in his mind as he finally arrives. The delinquent leader looks up, his cruel expression faltering with shock as he recognizes the ghost from his past who stands before him. Takakura Goro's intense gaze falls upon the man he once knew, his name, a silent accusation. He questions if this cruel thug is truly Momoi Yuichiro, the boy from his past, as the world seems to stand still. Yuichiro merely sighs, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face as he tries to process the impossible. With a sudden, violent shove, he hurls the terrified young woman to the ground, his patience completely gone. He dismisses the vision as a drunken hallucination, clinging to the belief that Takakura Goro has been dead for 30 years. But Goro's rage is all too real, his voice cutting through the air as he demands to know if Yuichiro is there to destroy everything. A chilling smirk forms on Yuichiro's face, his own menacing aura rising as he condescendingly warns the high schooler to watch his tone. He gives a single, cold command, and his crew of disguised thugs arm themselves, ready to eliminate the obstacle. But they're facing a monster from the past, as Goro erupts in a storm of motion, dismantling the entire crew in a completely one-sided fight. The sheer, overwhelming power on display shatters Yuichiro's delusion, the horrifying truth crashing down on him: this is no ghost. A memory flashes, a question from a time when he stood at the very top of the food chain. Why did it all have to end? The manager stares, a cold dread washing over him as he recognizes the impossible, the face of a man who shouldn't exist. Because the more he looks, the more he's reminded of a monster from the past, the original second-in-command of Amida. It's a fighting style that should have died 30 years ago, a phantom brought back to life to deliver judgment. Fueled by a mix of terror and rage, the manager lunges forward, throwing a desperate punch to erase this ghost from his sight. But the commander stands his ground, his voice a low growl as he declares this place is under his protection for his friend, Joji. The warning only enrages the manager, who screams that he'll make this insolent brat regret ever being born. Their fists collide, a clash between the greed of the present and the loyalty of a bygone era. And in an instant, the manager's entire world is consumed by a blinding, concussive force. The impact sends a shockwave down the street, an explosive testament to the power of a legend reborn. The Millennium Goons reel back in shock, mistaking the commander's raw power for a city-level gas explosion. Panic immediately sets in as the flames spread, and the remaining executives order a full retreat from the war zone. But in the chaos, they realize a horrifying truth. Their manager, the man who took the punch, has completely vanished. The entire street evacuates under the threat of another blast, abandoning the block to the raging inferno. Just then, Sendo Keisuke arrives from school, his eyes widening in horror as he sees the fire consuming the repair shop. He sprints toward the blaze, ignoring the fleeing workers, his mind racing to understand what could have possibly happened. His friend screams for him to come back, warning that it's too dangerous to get any closer. But Keisuke can't stop, his gaze locked on the burning building that holds so much meaning. Because this isn't just a shop, it's the place Joji calls home, a sanctuary born from a past spent abandoned and crying in the rain. Until one fateful day, a figure appeared before him, a voice that would pull him out of the darkness and give him a future. That voice belonged to a kind stranger who found him alone in the rain, a man who simply asked where his parents were. He offered the boy shelter at his repair shop, and a warm cup of cocoa to chase away the cold. In that moment, a cold garage became a home, a place of warmth and safety for a lost child. It soon became a haven for others too, a place where friends could gather and feel welcome. More than a shelter, it was a place to learn, to grow, and to build a future from nothing. But back in the present, Keisuke watches in horror as that precious place where he met everyone is devoured by the inferno. His mind flashes to the faces of his friends, the family he found, realizing with a jolt that they should all still be inside. He hasn't even had the chance to thank them, and with a tear in his eye, he makes a vow, no matter what, he has to save them. Just as he prepares to charge into the flames, mysterious figures begin to emerge from the smoke and ash. And in the next instant, his heroic resolve is shattered by a sudden, shocking spray of water. But the figures emerging aren't monsters, it's the Amida commander, carrying his friends out of the inferno with his bare hands. The sheer heat of the blaze is overwhelming, but his focus remains locked on the rescue. Keisuke's brain completely short-circuits, unable to process the impossible sight before him. He sets them down safely, brushing off the stammering questions by explaining he acted on pure instinct when the explosion hit. All the fear and despair melt away into pure, unadulterated relief as Keisuke embraces his friends, overjoyed that his family is safe. But the celebration is cut short as they look back at the smoldering ruins of their home, a grim reminder of everything they've just lost. Stepping forward, Yamamoto silently offers his own jacket, a sign of respect for their leader's heroic act. But instead of staying, the commander drapes the coat over his shoulders and begins to walk away with cold, silent purpose. He glances back with a smirk that promises absolute retribution, telling them with unshakable confidence to just stay put and wait. Left behind, Keisuke and the others can only watch in stunned silence as their leader walks off alone, clearly on a path to war. Ignoring his crew's pleas, the commander charges back into the roaring blaze, driven by the unshakable belief that a friend is still trapped inside. His mind flashes back to a brutal confrontation from their youth, a time when he and the Millennium Manager, Yuichiro, were nothing but bitter rivals. He remembers the sheer animosity of their clash, a desperate battle where every strike was meant to break the other. But just as his fist was about to land a decisive blow, a hand shot out, not to attack, but to defend. In a shocking move, the commander deflects Yuichiro's punch, choosing to parry the attack instead of delivering a devastating counter. That single act of mercy saved Yuichiro back then, and it's why the commander is certain that same person is still buried in the wreckage. And deep within the inferno, a battered Yuichiro stumbles through the debris, driven by a purpose he doesn't yet understand. He collapses against a wall, his mind reeling. Why would the commander risk everything to save the very man who orchestrated his ruin? The crushing weight of his sins bears down on him. He knows he is completely unworthy of this chance at atonement. But before he can process his regret, the toxic smoke overwhelms his lungs, his vision blurs, and the world begins to fade away. Trapped in the inferno, a bloody and defeated Yuichiro accepts his end. He closes his eyes, believing that for a man who has caused so much pain, this is the only fitting conclusion. But through the roar of the flames, a faint, persistent sound cuts through the noise, pulling him from his dark thoughts. In a deafening crash, the commander smashes through the wall, his eyes locked on the man he refused to leave behind. Before Yuichiro can even react, he's violently pulled from the debris, his mind reeling in pure disbelief. The commander stands over him, a force of nature, declaring that he tore the entire building apart just to find him. With a voice that shakes the very foundation, he roars that he came to save him, calling out to the rival who should be his enemy. This impossible act of salvation triggers a memory, a flashback to a different boss, a man who was once built like a mountain. He was the symbol of Amida, an unbreakable leader who carried the weight of the entire gang on his back. But that legendary figure, the man he looked up to, simply vanished one day, as if he were never there at all. But this act of rescue forces a dark memory to the surface, a time when a trusted friend waited alone, wondering why his allies were late for a meetup. He had no idea that this meeting was a trap, and he's brutally run down by a motorcycle, the first casualty in a night of absolute betrayal. All across the city, the core leadership of the Amida gang was systematically ambushed, their forces crippled in a single, coordinated strike. The most chilling part? The attackers weren't outsiders, they were their own brothers, turning on their comrades with ruthless efficiency. Even a younger, more naive Yuichiro was caught in the purge, pinned to the ground and mocked for believing in the fantasy of a fair fight. This was the night their bonds were shattered, their loyalty declared meaningless, as a bloody X was metaphorically drawn over their very name. And from the shadows emerged the mastermind of this coup, a man with chilling ambition radiating from his every pore, Resetsu Shuhei. With the old guard broken, Resetsu and his taco squad stood before their followers, declaring their independence and forging a new gang from the ashes. Millennium. His first act as leader was to declare total war, a promise of annihilation delivered with a terrifying, bloodthirsty grin. But even under the boot of this new tyrant, Yuichiro could only scream in defiance, warning him that the true commander would never let this betrayal stand. With Yuichiro pinned, Resetsu leans in with a twisted grin, delivering the devastating news that their beloved commander is already gone. He then extends an offer, a chance for Yuichiro to abandon his loyalties and join the new regime in its bloody ascent to power. But the only response he gets is pure, unadulterated rage, a promise of death spat from the mouth of a man who would rather die than betray his leader. For his insolence, Resetsu delivers a bone-shattering stomp, crippling him with a casual, mocking invitation to reconsider. The new tyrant and his men walk away without a second glance, leaving Yuichiro broken on the ground with a final, chilling command to stay quiet. In the aftermath, the once mighty Amida gang crumbles into dust, its legacy seemingly erased in a single night of betrayal. Sometime later, at a desolate meeting point for any remaining loyalists, a harsh reality sets in as only two members appear. A battered and bandaged Joji confirms their worst fears. Everyone else has either joined Resetsu or is too terrified to show their face. The fate of their boss remains a horrifying mystery, with only a vague newspaper clipping about a fiery traffic accident offering a clue. Joji can only curse the traitors, knowing that Resetsu's entire coup was only possible because their true commander vanished at the worst possible moment. Joji can only reflect on the cold, hard truth of their world. With enough violence and money, there's nothing you can't do. Word on the street is that the traitor Resetsu has already allied himself with the Yakuza, building an empire on drug money. His last remaining comrade finally admits defeat, telling a devastated Joji that they were both just blinded by their leader's dream. And with the dreamer himself gone, the final loyalist gives up hope, walking away and leaving Joji completely alone. Years later, a young man walks through his front door, but his simple greeting is cut short by the sudden, chilling click of handcuffs. It's a young Yuichiro, being arrested in his own home as his father, a now older and injured Joji, watches in absolute horror. Joji's fury explodes as he demands answers from the police, only to be threatened with his own arrest if he dares to interfere. As his family's life is torn apart, Yuichiro sees seizure notices plastered over their belongings, a testament to their sudden ruin. His mother reveals the devastating truth behind their downfall. His father's company got entangled with the Yakuza. But Yuichiro knows this was no accident. His father was framed, and as he runs through the pouring rain, a vow for vengeance is forged in his heart. With his father's freedom on the line, a desperate Yuichiro knows there's only one person he can turn to for help. He swallows every last shred of his pride, bowing in the pouring rain to swear his undying loyalty. Pleading for his father's life, he begs the man with deep Yakuza ties to intervene and pay the debt. But the man, the cold and calculating Resetsu, simply scoffs at him for begging for money after barging in uninvited. He then gestures to the courtyard, where an entire crew of his own men lie broken and unconscious, all defeated by Yuichiro himself. With a burning gaze, Yuichiro declares those men worthless, offering to become Resetsu's new right-hand man instead. A flicker of interest crosses Resetsu's face as he realizes this kid took down his entire force with a single broken arm. With a stomp of his foot and a single word, the decision is made, the deal is accepted. The gang leader looms over him like a demon, revealing he was already planning to expand his business beyond petty turf wars. And as he offers the ceremonial cup, a dark pact is sealed, pulling Yuichiro into the true criminal underworld. With a single gulp from the ceremonial cup, Yuichiro seals the devil's pact, his broken arm a constant reminder of the price he's already paid. In return, a briefcase full of cash is presented, a temporary fix for his father's debt, bought with an eternity of servitude. The white-haired leader smirks, welcoming his newest attack dog into the fold with two simple words. Welcome to Millennium. His mind flashes back to the brutal philosophy he was forced to adopt: find the strong when they are at their most vulnerable and shatter them completely. Then, once they're broken, descend upon the weak and strip them of everything they have left, leaving them with nothing but despair. He truly believed this was the only way, walking the streets as a cold-blooded enforcer while the memory of the father he was trying to save faded like a ghost in a window. He had become the perfect predator, a ruthless gangster molded by the underworld, but this path had a hidden, soul-crushing cost. Because for all the power he gained, his father still ended up here unconscious and wrapped in bandages in a cold hospital bed. Worse still, his new brothers show nothing but contempt, casually complaining about their food delivery as the old man's life hangs by a thread. Suddenly, the door swings open, and one of the thugs looks over, annoyed at the interruption, completely oblivious to the real threat that has just arrived. Just as they mock the old man's fate, the two enforcers are frozen in shock by an unwelcome arrival. It's the chairman of the entire Millennium Group, Neo Shuhei, walking in with a disarming smile that hides absolute authority. He wastes no time, immediately grilling his subordinates on how they allowed the demolition plan to fail so spectacularly. Their excuse is almost unbelievable. A single high school kid with a regent haircut, a phantom from a bygone era, appeared and ruined everything. This lone fighter was a force of nature, an unstoppable demon who even carried one of their own men out of the fire. The description strikes a chord with Neo, who dismisses it as a ghost story, something his uncle Yuichiro might have told him. He glances down at the man in the bed, a flicker of familiarity in his eyes as he connects the past with the present. The old man remains trapped in his own private hell, sweating and groaning as if reliving the trauma in a nightmare. And the cause of it all, the shopping district, now stands as a monument to Millennium's ruthless ambition. Meanwhile, the incident is already hitting the news, with reports explicitly blaming the fire and its many victims on the company's forced demolition. As the news of Millennium's destruction spreads, a heavy silence falls over the commander and his allies as they gather to discuss their next move. The commander listens, his knuckles white with barely contained fury, the weight of their failure pressing down on him. But it's Midori who breaks the tension, her voice trembling as she suggests the unthinkable, that they should give up the search for her mother. Stunned, the commander can only ask what she means, unable to comprehend her sudden loss of hope. She confesses her terror, admitting that Millennium is a monster far more dangerous and ruthless than any of them had ever prepared for. Their only lead, Mr. Joji, now lies in a coma while his shop is reduced to rubble. Every path forward has been completely cut off. He asks her if she's scared, and with a desperate cry, she admits that she is absolutely terrified, because she's realized a horrifying truth. Her mother, Yuki, didn't just know these monsters, she once worked alongside them. Her eyes, filled with a dawning horror, reveal it wasn't a casual connection. Her mother was deeply entangled in Millennium's web. She was one of their executives, a revelation that hangs in the air as the man who held their last hope groans, trapped in a nightmare he can't escape. And as Joji remains trapped in a coma, the story flashes back, revealing the moment this entire nightmare truly began. To the past, where the chairman of Millennium himself arrives, his subordinates bowing in perfect, fearful unison. He's greeted by a much younger Momoe Yuichiro, back before the scars and the bitterness took hold. The chairman, Neo Shuhei, dismisses Momoe's concerns with a casual smile, his mind already on his latest acquisition. Momoe, familiar with his boss's habits, simply asks what kind of woman he's brought into their world this time. A single, elegant foot steps out from the darkness of a luxury car, a silent promise of what's to come. With a gesture, Neo prepares to introduce the newest piece on his board, a piece that will change everything. And the woman who steps into the light is none other than Takakura Yuki, her face a mask of serene beauty. Momoe world shatters as he's told she'll be working with them, a ghost from the future appearing in his past. And with a chillingly sweet smile, Yuki greets him by name, her entry into the depths of Millennium now complete. In the shadowy world of backroom deals, the powerful chairman Rosetsu greets a high-ranking politician with a disarmingly pleasant smile. The president, clearly agitated, demands the meeting be quick, unaware he's already walking into a perfectly laid trap. He confesses his faction is in chaos after a crushing political defeat, revealing a vulnerability that Rosetsu is all too willing to exploit. But their tense discussion is cut short as the doors slide open, and a new, unexpected player enters the game. It's Takakura Yuki, Millennium's head of public relations, her graceful entrance and serene smile masking a hidden, dangerous purpose. The old politician is immediately distracted, his stern demeanor melting away as he is served with practiced elegance. As Yuki introduces herself, Rosetsu watches his guest's reaction, confirming she's a new employee under his command. A predatory smirk creeps across Rosetsu's face, knowing full well the man who claimed to be so busy is now completely ensnared. The flustered president quickly changes his tune, deciding that perhaps he has time to enjoy the hospitality after all. With a cold glint in his eye, Rosetsu gives the final command: the trap is sprung, and his new pawn is firmly in his grasp. With the door sliding shut, Yuki's part in the scheme is done, and she vanishes from sight as the trap is sprung. The scene cuts, and the shocking news finally reaches Takakura: his sister was secretly working for the enemy organization, Millennium. But Midori reveals an even deeper layer to the mystery. Yuki wasn't just an employee, she was an executive managing a club called Nostalgia. This intel comes from a desperate young man, a boy who risked everything to uncover this truth after his own mother disappeared. And now, this same boy joins Takakura's crew in a bizarre and grueling training session, questioning if this can truly make them strong enough to fight back. From above, Takakura pushes them relentlessly, his voice echoing in the alley. This is their only path to the power they so desperately need. The ridiculous technique, they admit, was stolen from an old movie, a desperate gambit for a legendary power-up. Midori watches the whole pathetic display with utter disbelief, thinking it's complete nonsense even as she barks at them to lower their stance. But the comedy fades as Takakura brings them back to the terrifying reality. If Yuki was with Millennium, then why did she disappear after a call from them? Midori is left with no answers, only the chilling admission that her mother promised to explain before she vanished into the very darkness she commanded. The bullied student, trembling but resolute, lays out their only path forward. Infiltrate the club Nostalgia and seize Millennium's secrets. The raw, reckless simplicity of the plan leaves Takakura and his entire crew absolutely speechless. But in a sterile hospital room far away, a battered man who once stood in their way jolts awake with a primal scream. Clutching his bandaged head in a fog of pain, he desperately tries to figure out where he is, until a calm voice cuts through the confusion. His eyes fly open in sheer terror as he recognizes a voice that should belong to a ghost. He screams the name Rosetsu, only for a chillingly calm, white-haired man to remark on the shock he must be feeling. Lost and disoriented, the patient struggles to connect the past with the present. The visitor, Neo Shuhei, casually reveals the man has mistaken him for his father, leaving the patient baffled to be facing the president himself. But Neo dismisses his confusion, revealing he's found something far more interesting as he holds up his phone. On the screen is the unmistakable image of the biker bro, the commander of Amida, now marked as a target by an entirely new level of predator. The beaten shop owner can only offer a sincere apology for his complete and utter failure. His two hulking subordinates immediately snap to attention as a new, far more dangerous presence enters the room. It's Neo Shuhei, the president himself, and his first question confirms his subordinate's answer to a mysterious figure named Miss Momoi. Then, with a casual smile still on his face, he explodes into violence, driving a punishing blow into the first man's stomach. Before the second can even process what's happening, Neo pivots with blinding speed, landing a devastating punch that shows a terrifying gap in power. As his men collapse to the floor, he coldly states that he can overlook the accidental fire they caused. But their failure to deal with a single high school punk, he snarls, is a disgrace he shouldn't have to clean up himself. His smile turns venomous as he reminds them of the shame they've brought, and the terrifying consequences if his own father finds out. The patient in the bed is suddenly silenced, grabbed by an unseen hand as he's forced to watch the brutal display. With his two enforcers left beaten and humiliated on the floor, Neo calmly straightens his suit, giving one final order: finish the job, and do it quickly. In an ultimate display of dominance, Neo throws 1,000,000 yen at his beaten subordinates, a casual payment for their broken bodies and shattered pride. With his pawns bowing in terrified gratitude, he coldly dismisses them, his attention already focused on the true reason he's here. Turning to the captive shop owner, Neo presents a file, explaining that the pleasantries are over and it's time to confirm some information. The man's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. The report is impossibly detailed, forcing him to question what kind of monster could gather intel like this. Elsewhere, the screech of a motorcycle cuts through the night as a different search reaches its destination, though not the one they expected. It's Takakura Goro, with Midori and his crew in tow, looking completely out of place in a district of blinding neon lights. His eyes lock onto a sign, the name Club Nostalgia doing nothing to clear his confusion. But as they look down, the shocking truth becomes clear. The address has led them to a high-class hostess club. While one of his men recognizes the famous establishment, Goro struggles to process the insane idea that the woman he's looking for, Yuki, could be the manager here. And back in the silence of the hospital room, the shop owner reads the name on the file, confirming the very same identity with a cold dread: Takakura Yuki. Neo reveals the true gravity of the situation. Secret ledgers detailing Millennium's darkest secrets were nearly exposed, saved only by a mole at the last second. The person responsible for this chaos, the inheritor of an entire criminal empire and manager of Nostalgia, is none other than the turncoat Takakura Yuki. Meanwhile, as Goro's crew prepares to infiltrate that very club, their leader is having a hard time adjusting to the plan. Midori can only look on, completely unimpressed by the legendary delinquent's awkwardness. Stripped of his pompadour and stuffed into a suit, Goro looks less like a gangster and more like a relic from a forgotten era. His own men can't help but wonder if his ridiculous old hairstyle was actually a better look for him. Reaching her breaking point, Midori rips open her top in pure frustration, shocking the crew into silence. She makes it clear they have to sneak into the club, and looking like a bunch of thugs will get them caught instantly. With a brilliant flash, she reveals her own disguise, a stunning hostess ready for an interview, leaving Goro absolutely speechless. Confident in her plan, she declares her cosplay skills are the key to getting them into the staff-only areas to find their target. While Goro can only watch in disbelief, Midori is absolutely buzzing, treating this deadly infiltration like she's the star of a spy movie. Their secret weapon is revealed, a tech prodigy they saved, who hands them a USB stick designed to rip the club's secrets right from their servers. The plan is simple: get Midori inside to plant the drive, and he'll handle the rest of the hack remotely from a safe distance. With the roles set, Goro vows to act as her bodyguard on the inside, while his crew keeps a getaway vehicle running for a quick escape. The operation is a go, and the unlikely pair stride through the city streets, heading straight into the heart of enemy territory. From above, the pieces move into place as Midori approaches the entrance alone, with Goro and his men trying to blend into the surrounding crowd. She arrives at her target, a club called Nostalgia Tokyo, the very place where their enemy runs his entire operation. But the moment she steps inside, the playful atmosphere vanishes, replaced by a cold, suffocating tension as she ventures deeper into the club. Suddenly, a horrifying scream echoes from the building, and Goro's face twists in shock. The mission has already fallen apart. Throwing the entire plan out the window, the legendary brawler breaks into a desperate sprint, his only thought to save Midori at any cost. Goro crashes through the building, his heart pounding as he finds Midori trembling on the floor, but her terror has rendered her speechless, completely unable to explain what horrifying enemy she just faced. The supposed monster is revealed to be a single, tiny mouse, and the high-stakes mission grinds to a halt. Goro's mind completely short-circuits, unable to process that this was the source of the life-or-death scream. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the city, the true puppet master Neo Shuhei gives a chilling ultimatum: find a woman named Takakura Yuki, or face the consequences. The order visibly shakes the legendary Resetsu, dredging up a dark history connected to Neo's own father. With his warning delivered, Neo turns to leave, the weight of his command promising a storm is about to break. Hez not just making idle threats, Hez mobilizing his entire organization for this one single objective. In a move that will shake the underworld, he declares that all of Millennium's operations are to be frozen until this woman is found. And as Goro and Midori finally look up, they realize the club isn't just empty, it's been utterly destroyed. With a chillingly calm demeanor, Neo gives the legendary Resetsu a single, impossible order: find a woman named Takakura Yuki. As his lieutenant helps him into his coat, the weight of his command signals a storm is about to break over the entire city. He then makes an unprecedented declaration that will shake the underworld. All of Millennium's illegal operations are to be frozen until his objective is met. Meanwhile, Goro and his crew are left standing in the silence and dust of a ruined club, their only lead gone cold. They search the abandoned space for any clue, any sign of what happened, but come up with absolutely nothing. Cornered and desperate, Goro and Midori begin a frantic citywide search, hitting every Millennium affiliate company they can find. The hunt triggers a painful memory from his past, a desperate sprint through the streets, driven by that same frantic urgency. Hez held back by his own crew, screaming Yuki's name in a moment of pure, unadulterated panic that defined his life. But every lead in the present turns into a dead end. Each corporate front just another unbreachable, ordinary office building. Overwhelmed by failure and the ghosts of his past, Goro can only smash his fists into the ground, completely powerless. With no clues left to follow, Goro's mind is consumed by a single question, haunted by the smiling face of the girl who vanished. For days he's torn the city apart, but every single lead has turned to ash, leaving him with nothing but the echo of his failure. He stares at his own hands, realizing the strange numbness from his journey through time has faded, a horrifying confirmation that he's trapped, with no way back to his own era. Lost in his despair, he's violently snapped back to reality by a furious detective, who threatens to chain him up if he doesn't start talking. But when asked for his identity, Goro's answer stuns the officer. He was born in 1972, making him the exact same age as the middle-aged cop in front of him. And in that moment of impossible confusion, a single name cuts through the noise, a name he thought he'd never hear again: Yuki. His head snaps up to find a delinquent girl sitting with defiant confidence, introducing herself with the one name he's been desperately searching for. The lead detective, however, is completely unconvinced by her story, holding up a piece of damning evidence he found on her. She was caught red-handed with a syringe and a strange vial, weaving a flimsy tale about delivering it for a runaway crew, claiming total ignorance. Just as the detective tries to call her parents, she lunges for the phone, and Goro's heart sinks. This can't be his Yuki. Just some other troubled kid, but the cop's sharp command forces him to keep watching. Suddenly, the station is thrown into chaos. As a report comes in, 2 major crews are at war, forcing a full mobilization of every officer. In the ensuing panic, the cell door slams shut, and the detective coldly informs Goro and Yuki that they're being abandoned until tomorrow. Yuki desperately rattles the bars, her protests falling on deaf ears as the officer walks away, leaving them completely stranded. But while she panics, Goro remains eerily calm, advising her to save her strength, his past experiences giving him a chilling insight into their situation. She turns on him, scoffing at his confidence and questioning his expertise, completely unaware of the legend she's trapped with. Drawing a line in the sand, she insists they are nothing alike, claiming she only ended up here because of bad luck. Goro dismisses her tough act with a single cold command, and she immediately deflates, slumping to the ground in frustration. The lone guard left behind makes small talk, musing about whether old-school biker gangs still exist and asking if Goro was ever part of one. He vaguely recalls a gang from his youth with a strange name, Amida Buddha, and at the mention of that single word, Goro's entire world freezes. Just as this impossible link to his past appears, a new detective arrives on the scene, interrupting the one man who might hold the key. The new detective subtly slips the guard a bribe, his intentions hidden behind a professional smile. He approaches Yuki with a plausible lie, claiming a mistake has been made and that he's moving her to a women-only cell. But the cold click of her handcuffs tells a different story, a chilling reminder that she is still very much a prisoner. As she's led down the hall, naively asking if she can just go home, she's completely unaware she's being moved to a far greater danger. Goro watches them leave, his instincts screaming that something is wrong, questioning why a simple transfer requires her to stay in chains. He confronts the guard, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, demanding to know their true plan before uttering the one name that changes everything. Amida. Leaning in, Goro reveals he knows exactly what gang the guard was talking about, turning the man's nostalgic slip-up into a weapon. And just like that, the guard's carefully constructed life shatters as his true identity is revealed. Amida's second squad vice captain, Nishimura Daiki. The officer is stunned into silence, his mind reeling as he desperately tries to understand how this prisoner could know the deepest secret of his past. His composure gone, Nishimura lunges at the bars, his authority replaced by pure terror as he demands to know just who the hell Goro really is. The crooked detective leads Yuki not to freedom, but to an abandoned warehouse, his friendly demeanor a sickening mask. Her confusion turns to pain as she's violently shoved inside, the cold concrete meeting her with a harsh thud. Sprawled on the ground, the reality of her situation crashes down on her. This isn't a transfer, it's a trap. She looks up in terror as a menacing figure emerges from the shadows, his cruel words confirming her worst fears. The final piece of the puzzle clicks into place as she watches the detective who brought her here get paid, her life sold for a fistful of cash. She's now face to face with Jinguji Ken, the ruthless boss of the Kingdom crew, who accuses her of a betrayal she can't escape. As the dirty detective lights a cigarette and walks away, he gives one final, chilling order: leave no evidence behind. The sound of her handcuffs being unlocked isn't a sign of release, but the beginning of an unspeakable horror. Jinguji Ken looms over her, his voice dripping with venom as he promises to make her pay with her own body. And as another thug steps forward with a camera, their true, monstrous plan is revealed. A nightmare she will never be able to escape. The corrupt detective takes a drag from his cigarette, smugly telling the thugs to keep their sordid business quiet. But inside, as Jinguji Ken prepares to start, the room is suddenly plunged into an unnatural, suffocating darkness. Before he can even react, the detective is violently slammed from behind by a white-hot blur of motion. The sounds of a one-sided beatdown echo through the door, as a foot flies past Jinguji's head in the pitch black. His cameraman is the first to fall, sent crashing into the wall by an unseen force moving faster than the eye can see. Jinguji screams for light as his men are systematically dismantled around him, utterly helpless against the phantom attacker. Another one of his thugs is launched through the air, his body contorted by the sheer, overwhelming power of the assault. Lying on the ground, the cameraman desperately fumbles with his phone rig, trying to illuminate the monster hunting them. He finally points the blinding lights forward, screaming into the void, demanding to know who dares to interfere. And as the glare reveals a face of cold, silent fury, the thug's rage instantly shatters into a final, blood-curdling scream of terror. With a bone-shattering impact, the silent fury finally finds its voice, revealing the deeply personal reason for this one-sided beatdown. He unleashes a final, devastating kick, roaring that his own little sister's name is Yuki, a fact that has sealed this thug's fate. The girl he rescued, still in handcuffs, can only look on in utter confusion, completely lost as to what this stranger's revelation means. Meanwhile, the corrupt detective staggers to his knees amidst the wreckage of his men, recognizing the monster who did this as the high schooler from the holding cell. As Goro stands protectively over Yuki, the detective can't reconcile the image of a mere student with the absolute demon who just tore through them. Bowing his head in temporary defeat, the detective asks how he was found, only for Goro to state that his suspicious nature made him easy to track. But the detective's fear instantly evaporates, replaced by the chilling confidence of his authority as he warns Goro to prepare for the consequences. He smirks, laying out the twisted scales of justice. For a kid who assaulted a cop, it's years in juvie. For the corrupt officer, it's a simple pay cut. As the station alarms begin to scream, a spark of hope ignites in Yuki. If she testifies against him, she can change everything. But the detective's expression turns to pure contempt, knowing that in a battle of words between a runaway girl and an officer of the law, the system has already chosen a winner. With the station on high alert, police reinforcements finally close in on their targets. Cornered with nowhere left to run, Goro and the still-cuffed Yuki are forced to surrender. But this isn't a simple arrest. An entire tactical squad swarms them, ready for an all-out war. Just as the situation seems contained, an officer at the perimeter is forced to halt an unexpected vehicle trying to enter the scene. Hess, baffled by the sudden appearance of a luxury car, a vehicle that has no business being anywhere near a police operation. But as he leans in to turn them away, his professional demeanor shatters when he sees who's sitting in the back seat. Inside, the lead detective berates his men for the chaos, only to be told the suspects have been successfully captured. His tirade is cut short by a calm voice, and he turns, annoyed at the sudden interruption. But that annoyance instantly twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated terror as he recognizes the figure standing before him. Because this is no ordinary man, it's Ishikawa Minoru, the chairman of the SR group, an absolute titan whose arrival changes all the rules. The surrounding officers can only whisper in shock, questioning why the legendary chairman of the massive SR group would personally appear at a gang bust. While the police violently shove Takakura against a car, his stoic silence does nothing to stop the arrest. But Yuki, flanked by tactical officers, desperately screams for them to stop, insisting the man they're arresting did nothing wrong and only helped her. Ignoring the chaos, the chairman walks directly towards Yuki, his gaze fixed on the cuffed and bewildered young woman. She looks up, completely lost, as this titan of industry stops right in front of her. With a stern face, he reveals how they found her. Her phone was still on, allowing them to track her location to this very spot. But that cold authority instantly melts away into a comical flood of tears, his composure shattering with overwhelming relief. He pulls his granddaughter into a bone-crushing hug, sobbing about how worried he was, much to her utter embarrassment. The lead detective's mind races, the pieces clicking into place with a dawning, stomach-dropping horror. And then the truth is revealed. The girl they've just arrested is Ishikawa Yuki, the sole heir to the entire SR group. The chairman's attention shifts from his granddaughter to the man in cuffs, but before he can question him, Yuki excitedly offers an introduction. With pride in her eyes, she points to the man being arrested, declaring him the hero who saved her life, her big brother Yuki. The scene suddenly melts away into the past, where a young Inspector Nishimura watches the soulless march of adults, wondering if they ever get bored. He scoffs at their monotonous lives, questioning the very purpose of an existence lived in such a dull, repetitive cycle. His disdain is interrupted by a fellow Amida member, telling him to hurry as they tail their leader under the gang's proud banner. With a final sneer at the world of adults, he drops his drink, rejecting their boring reality with every fiber of his being. He swears to himself that he'll never become like them, choosing instead the freedom of the roaring engine and the open road. Fixated on the back of his legendary commander, he vows to become a man who would never bring shame to that name. But a voice from the present cuts through the memory, asking him to look at himself now and question if he's lived up to that promise. And in a thunderous roar that shakes the very soul of the terrified inspector, Takakura Goro demands an answer from the man he once called Brother Daiki Nishimura. Jolted from his memory, Assistant Inspector Nishimura snaps back to a world of confusion and pain. His colleagues surround him, asking if he's awake, but he can barely process where he is or what just happened. The memory flashes back with brutal clarity, the lightning-fast headbutt from the monster in the cell that sent him into darkness. But it wasn't just the impact that shook him. It was the name he heard, Amida, a ghost from a past he thought long dead. His eyes dart to the holding cell, only to find it wide open and eerily empty, a cold dread creeping up his spine. Ignoring the calls of his men, he bursts out of the room, running on pure instinct towards an unbelievable possibility. His mind races, screaming that it's impossible, that what he's thinking can't be real, a desperate denial against the truth. But then he sees a group of men walking away under police escort, and at their center, a silhouette that defies all logic. It's the back of his legendary commander, his life's goal, a man who supposedly died 30 years ago. Shattered and desperate, Nishimura stumbles forward, screaming Takakura's name, demanding an answer to how a dead man can walk again. His own men restrain him, his desperate cries to reach his commander echoing uselessly in the station. But his pursuit is cut short by a cold, calculated accusation he's not a hero chasing a ghost, but a corrupt cop being framed for bribery. The verdict is already decided, his career and honor systematically dismantled as he's told to prepare for disciplinary action. Forced into a moment of clarity, he confronts the hollow man he's become, crushed by the mundane weight of a boring life. His mind races back to the legend, desperately questioning if Takakura, his idol, could have ever fallen this far. But before he can find an answer, the sharp, violent sound of a belt being pulled tight shatters the silence. In an instant, he's bound and gagged, his confusion turning to sheer terror as he's treated not like a criminal, but like a madman. Completely helpless, he's wheeled out on a gurney, his muffled struggles ignored as he's loaded into an ambulance. As the vehicle speeds off to a psychiatric hospital, a mysterious woman watches, revealing this was all a calculated diversion. Her companions can only wonder how things escalated so far, admitting that even for a monster like Takakura, this level of chaos is completely unprecedented. Outside the police station, Takakura's strange new crew can only wait in awkward silence, completely unsure of what to do next. Sendo wrestles with the impossible truth of their situation, realizing there's no way to explain that their leader is a time traveler who likely just beat his way out of jail. But their vigil is interrupted by the arrival of a dangerous-looking man, Jinguji Ken, who demands to know what they're doing on his turf. Just then, a legendary silhouette emerges from the chaos, Takakura Goro himself, free from his chains, and radiating an aura of absolute power. Jinguji turns to face this bizarre gathering, mockingly sizing them up as a weird combination of misfits. He dismisses them as a gyaru, a nerd, and a gloomy loner, instantly earning the trio's collective rage. Before the tension can explode, another figure appears from the shadows, a woman whose sudden presence completely shatters Jinguji's composure. He points between the two, his mind racing as he realizes the monster Takakura and this mysterious woman, Yuki, are somehow connected. Yuki, however, simply winks, dismissing his shock and acting as if this entire impossible reunion is all part of the plan. Then, with a smirk, she tosses a phone straight at Jinguji, calling it a gift, and leaving the thug utterly confused about the game he just walked into. Yuki departs with a cryptic smile, promising to be in touch as her powerful grandfather, the chairman of the SR group, watches from the shadows. The phone is a state-of-the-art model, a blatant show of wealth that annoys Midori, while the legendary fighter Takakura Goro simply stares in wonder. This titan of the streets, a man from a bygone era, is hilariously stumped by the device, searching for a receiver that doesn't exist. As Yuki walks away, Midori's suspicion boils over, demanding to know Goro's relationship with this woman and why they emerged from a police station together. Goro's expression turns deadly serious as he reveals a heavy truth. His freedom wasn't free, it was bought with a promise he made to her. The question of what he promised hangs in the air, leaving his allies completely stunned and wondering what kind of dangerous pact he's entered. Meanwhile, Yuki's grandfather praises her for making new friends, but she coldly dismisses the idea, thanking him only for his timely intervention. Her true plan comes into focus as she gazes back at the group, asking her grandfather for a favor concerning that kid, in exchange for going back to school. Completely manipulated by her act, the old man is overjoyed, promising his dear granddaughter anything she wants as long as she studies hard. With her scheme perfectly executed, Yuki drives off with a triumphant smile, leaving a trail of manipulated people behind to serve her unknown goals. As Yuki's car disappears into the night, her grandfather is completely taken in by her act, believing he has no choice but to grant her dangerous request. But his doting expression hardens into the cold mask of a powerful chairman, demanding to know everything about the boy she's now involved with. His assistant presents a dossier, explaining that this isn't just some random delinquent, he's a figure who has recently exploded in online fame. The screen shows a legend in the making, the vigilante known only as Biker Bro, a man who punishes the corrupt with his own two fists. Unsettled, the assistant questions the wisdom of letting such a violent individual get close to the young miss, even if he did save her life. Ishikawa, however, dismisses the concern, deciding it's far better than letting her run away again, and resolves to let Yuki have her way. He reflects on his own failure, admitting he was wrong to believe she could overcome her past trauma all on her own. Resolved to watch over her closely this time, he's completely unaware that in the back of that car, Yuki is already drifting back into the darkness that shaped her. A painful memory surfaces of a small, forgotten child, ignored by her constantly fighting parents who never spared her a single glance. She was surrounded by faceless predators who only ever saw her as a tool, a pawn to be used because of her family's immense power and wealth. She was just a girl, lost in a sea of faceless figures who never cared about who she was, only what she represented. Her mind rewinds to Nishiroku Third High School, a place that promised a new beginning but delivered the same old pain. The moment she steps into the classroom, the vultures begin to circle, their voices dripping with a sickeningly sweet poison. They crowd around her, showering her with fake compliments and feigned concern, asking where she's been all this time. One girl excitedly shows off a limited edition item on her phone, a carefully prepared lure to set the stage for the inevitable trap. With a dramatic sigh, she complains about her allowance being gone, a pathetic, all too familiar performance. And then the mask fully drops, a greedy, sinister smile spreading across her face as she casually asks for a 200,000 yen loan. Yuki keeps a hollow smile, the crushing realization hitting her. She had actually dared to hope these girls were different. But in the cold echo of the school bathroom, she hears their true feelings, how they find her disgusting and only tolerate her for her wealth. Hidden in a stall, she's forced to listen as they gleefully plot to milk her for everything she's worth, their laughter sealing her fate. Deep down, she always knew their smiles were poison, their friendship a hollow, transactional lie. The lead leech drapes an arm over her, an act of false intimacy before demanding Yuki become her personal ATM. Like sharks smelling blood in the water, the others immediately swarm, their chorus of greed echoing through the classroom. The bully's face twists into a sinister sneer, threatening total isolation if Yuki dares to refuse their demands. But for the first time, a single, earth-shattering word escapes her lips. No, leaving her tormentors frozen in disbelief. With eyes burning with newfound fire, she declares she's done being used, done being their plaything. Their shock curdles into outrage, twisting the narrative to paint themselves as the victims of a sudden betrayal. The facade crumbles completely as the leader lunges forward, her hands grabbing Yuki in a desperate attempt to reassert dominance. A venomous threat is hurled, a promise to destroy any hope of a peaceful life for daring to look down on them. But her strength isn't her own, it's fueled by the memory of a kind man who saw her suffering and refused to leave her alone. With her eyes squeezed shut, Yuki declares that her protector is on his way, a true friend who will not let her down. Her tormentors are frozen by her sudden confidence, as she senses a familiar rumble in the distance. He's here. But before her savior can arrive, a new challenger appears, the hulking boss of the Third High School, flanked by his twin enforcers, looking for a fight. In an instant, a powerful gust of wind sends the entire crew stumbling back, completely caught off guard by the sheer force of the arrival. A motorcycle tears through the schoolyard, a time-lost delinquent at the helm with a mysterious blue-haired girl riding behind him. The fearsome giant can only stare in utter disbelief, recognizing the face of the man who had utterly humiliated him before. The bike skids to a perfect stop, its rider coolly announcing to his companion that they've finally reached their destination. He removes his shades, and the bully's crew realizes with horror that it's the same hick from before, only this time he looks even more imposing. But the legendary fighter doesn't even remember the school's top dog, his dismissive question showing an absolute gap in their power levels. Enraged at being forgotten, the boss squares up for a rematch, promising to go all out, only to be met with a cold rejection that signals this fight is already over. Instead of fighting, he extends a hand with a smile, introducing himself as a new transfer student and suggesting they should all be friends. His very presence sends a ripple of shock through the students, who can't comprehend what they're seeing. He made his grand entrance on a roaring motorcycle, a mysterious girl clinging to his back, an image ripped straight from a bygone era. With a flick of his wrist, he removes his shades, his expression so nonchalant it feels like an insult to everyone watching. The entire school presses against the windows, some in awe and others in confusion at the sheer, old-school delinquent energy radiating from him. Back in the schoolyard, the hulking boss is ready for round 2, but Goro simply brushes him off, telling him to let it go. He offers a handshake, reintroducing himself as a new student with a disarming smile, completely ignoring the murderous aura aimed at him. The bully is stunned into silence, his rage momentarily replaced by pure confusion, as he reluctantly takes the offered hand. For a split second, it seems like the tension might actually break as their hands meet in a firm, powerful grip. But the truce is a lie. The bully's face contorts in pure hatred, making it clear this will only end with blood. The bully leader declares that with no one to interfere, this fight is his, tightening his grip with murderous intent. Onlooking students whisper in fear, knowing the giant's handshake is powerful enough to shatter a walnut. But one girl can only look on in silent dread, thinking the new kid is a fool for walking into such an obvious trap. As their hands lock, a surge of power reveals this isn't a greeting, it's a test of raw, overwhelming strength. A horrifying scream echoes through the schoolyard as Goro, with zero effort, begins to systematically crush the bully's hand. With a calm, almost bored expression, Goro looks down at the writhing student, welcoming him to the class while his bones threaten to snap. But the brutal lesson is cut short by the furious shout of a teacher storming into the schoolyard. The defeated bullies scatter instantly, their leader vowing revenge while clutching his shattered pride and mangled hand. Goro isn't safe yet, as the teacher's rage immediately pivots to him and the girl, demanding to know who brought a motorcycle to school. While his new friend panics, Goro's eyes drift towards some cleaning equipment, a clever, almost devious plan already forming in his mind. With the teacher closing in, Goro makes his move, his hand closing around a wooden pole with menacing intent. The teacher freezes, his authority instantly challenged, as he demands to know what the defiant student plans to do. He flinches back in terror, fully expecting a brutal, skull-crushing blow from the new transfer student. But instead of violence, Goro drops into an impossible push-up stance over the stunned man, cheerfully introducing himself as the newest member of the class. Completely baffled by this bizarre power move, the teacher can only stammer, asking why Goro isn't going to hit him. It turns out the school's punishment is just push-ups, and as other delinquents are disciplined, Goro finds the modern approach strangely unsatisfying. But the teachers are trapped, as dozens of students watch from the windows, phones out, ready to make any corporal punishment go viral. Forced to back down, the teacher assigns an apology letter instead. A fate Goro declares is even worse than getting hit. His business outside concluded, Goro confidently slides open a classroom door, calling out to someone he promised to meet. He stands before a row of female students, announcing his arrival and fulfilling a mysterious promise that leaves the entire class in shock. The girls are stunned into silence, questioning why this absolute monster of a transfer student is here. Goro calmly announces he's only here on business for the girl they mock as Stone Grill. Her supposed friends reel in terror, remembering this is the man who single-handedly crushed their school's giant, and they wonder how Yuki could possibly know him. Sensing her opportunity, Yuki tries to walk away, but the group's leader refuses to let her go so easily. With her new protector behind her, Yuki finally stands up for herself, cutting ties with the girls who only ever used her for money. Goro gently calls her a dummy and gestures for her to follow, ready to escort her from the hostile classroom. As her former bullies watch in disbelief, Yuki smiles, finally feeling like she has an ally, and sends a silent thank you to her grandfather. But far away, the very identity of Goro Takakura is being called into question as a man reviews his freshly created student file. An elderly chairman, Ishikawa Minoru, is briefed on the situation. Goro's official birth records are completely non-existent, a ghost in the system. The investigation has stalled, but the assistant reveals a new, incomprehensible story he heard from the police, a story that only deepens the enigma of the boy who shouldn't exist. The assistant delivers the officer's unbelievable testimony. Goro Takakura died 30 years ago, and then came back to life. The chairman immediately questions the officer's sanity, but his aide confirms that while the man is under suspicion for other crimes, the story itself is what's being reported. But this impossible tale doesn't anger the old man, it fascinates him, a premonition that something grand is about to unfold. For now, he'll simply watch from the sidelines, honoring the earnest plea of his granddaughter Yuki. Meanwhile, on the school rooftop, Midori is laying down the law, forcing Yuki's former tormentors into a bizarre penance. The lead bully scoffs at the very idea, utterly refusing to believe the insane story that Takakura traveled through time. He and his crew are forced to kneel with books on their heads, questioning just how long this humiliating punishment will last. Their sentence is simple. They will remain in this position as training until the man himself, Takakura, arrives. One of the thugs mockingly asks if Takakura was hit by a truck, joking about the classic anime trope for time travel. But the joke hangs in the air with an unsettling weight, as Midori suddenly recalls that's exactly what Takakura said happened to him. The bullies' minds are blown, jumping to the wild conclusion that Takakura is a reincarnated hero from another world, forcing Midori to angrily correct their absurd theory. As two of the thugs start connecting the dots with Takakura's old-fashioned style and ignorance of modern tech, their leader scoffs, dismissing the entire story as a gullible fantasy. He argues that time travel is simply impossible, a common scam, but Midori cuts him off with a single, piercing question. Then why did he come to their school? With the bullies silenced, Midori's true plan comes to light as she recalls her proposition. for Keisuke to become Yuka's personal bodyguard. The scene shifts, revealing a high-stakes deal being discussed on the back of a motorcycle. Keisuke agrees to protect Yuki, and in return, the powerful SR group will hunt for his mother by investigating the shadowy Millennium organization. But Keisuke still questions the motive, asking why a bodyguard is even necessary, only to be told it's a vital part of her school life. He's left with a cryptic warning that he will understand the true danger of the school the moment he steps foot inside. Back in the present, the lead bully reluctantly admits that a massive corporation has a better chance of success than a group of high schoolers. His crew, however, still can't see the danger, simply assuming Yuki needs a bodyguard because of her stuck-up attitude. But hearing their casual insults triggers a sudden realization in Midori when, and more importantly, why, did everyone develop this false image of Yuki in the first place? Midori forces the bullies to dig deep into their memories, to recall who Yuki was at the very beginning of the semester. And as the past floods back, they remember a classroom where things were different. At first, they only recall her condescending attitude, belittling a classmate for forgetting something so simple. But her actions told a completely different story, as she generously offered supplies to anyone who needed them. She used her own wealth to set up free internet for the class, all while maintaining her arrogant facade. She would even arrive early to do all the cleaning herself, telling everyone else to just sit down and relax. The memories continue, of her handing out ice cream and other expensive snacks to the entire class. She was always the first to volunteer, even delivering handouts to sick students no matter how far away they lived. Using her family's driver as an excuse, she took on any task to help her classmates. And in the present, the bully's face changes, as the truth finally dawns on him. She wasn't stuck up. She was just desperately trying to fit in. The bullies stare at Midori, their entire perception of her finally shattering. Maybe she wasn't a bad kid, just different. But as the lead bully looks at her, a different memory is triggered, a memory of Yuki, and the exact moment her life began to change. His mind flashes back to a darker time, questioning when Yuki first fell in with a dangerous, older crowd. He recalls the chilling sight of a predatory man placing a hand on her shoulder, a silent threat that went unnoticed by all. Suddenly, back in the present, a hand grips his leg with surprising strength, as Midori herself physically intervenes. The memory, however, continues to play, showing the day Yuki found a true protector, proudly linking arms with the fearsome delinquent Takakura Goro. Takakura's eyes narrow, his expression hardening as he finally spots the man he's been hunting down. He steps forward without a word, a silent wall between the creep and the girl he swore to protect. The man just smirks, recognizing the transfer student who's always shadowing Yuki Ishikawa. And deep in the past, we see the source of it all, a lonely girl eating a lavish meal in an empty home, wondering if her parents will ever come back. Her days are spent in gilded silence. A vast, empty mansion, her only companion as a butler, confirms her solitary meal. With a weary sigh, she gives up on the pretense of a family dinner and heads out into the world. All she ever wanted was genuine human warmth, rejecting a life of elite isolation for something real. And so, she steps out of her chauffeured car and into the life of a normal high school student, searching for a place to finally belong. But her wealth and privilege become a wall she can't break down, her awkward attempts to connect only pushing others away and branding her an outsider. Resigned to her fate, she takes on the menial tasks no one else will, carrying the weight of her loneliness with the classroom trash. But her quiet solitude is shattered by a cruel, unseen attack. A foot lashes out, sending her flying. A terrified scream echoes through the stairwell as she plummets headfirst towards the cold, hard floor. Suddenly, in a blur of motion, a figure dives in, catching her just moments before a devastating impact. Her mysterious savior turns to her with a gentle smile, simply glad that he was there to catch her. But she can only stare, shocked, trying to warn this commoner away before he gets himself into trouble. He turns back, confused by her panic, just as 2 bags of wet, disgusting trash are dropped directly on top of him. With a sickening splash, the garbage explodes across the floor, but not before he pulls her into his arms, shielding her from the filthy downpour. Drenched in grime, she looks up at the man who just took the full force of a cruel prank meant for her. Yet instead of anger, an impossible sound rings out. He throws his head back and bursts into uncontrollable laughter. She's left completely speechless, unable to understand the man who can find joy in this humiliating moment, a man named Sagara Tetsuya. Her mind flashes back to a different time, remembering the legend of Sagara, the school's star athlete. He was the perfect student, excelling in academics and blessed with looks, talent, and a powerful family background. An untouchable prince so popular his locker would overflow with the confessions of every girl who worshipped him from afar. He was the school's untouchable prince, a figure so flawless that everyone simply admired him from a distance. But she was starting to see that behind his perfect smile, Sagara was perhaps a little eccentric. After the garbage incident, he started closing the distance between them, and she found herself slowly being drawn into his strange world. One day, he offered to introduce her to his friends, leading her not to the student council room, but to a dusty door marked weightlifting club. He seemed so proud to present them, but her face was a mask of confusion, unable to understand what was happening. As Sagara made the introductions, the camera pans down, revealing his friends are not who she expected at all. Her mind races as the rumors click into place. Every notorious, violent delinquent in the entire school was said to gather somewhere. And she had just walked right into their den, with the school's perfect student standing right at the center of them all. The largest of the thugs, Haramoto Kichi, steps forward to introduce himself, offering a handshake to the terrified girl. But her fear and disgust overwhelm her as she slaps his hand away, screaming that she would never be friends with commoners. Furious, she turns to storm out, leaving them all behind. But in her haste, her feet betray her, sending her crashing to the ground. Dazed and humiliated, she can only wince from the sudden impact. Instead of mockery, a hand is offered to her by the very delinquents she just scorned. They even bicker amongst themselves, scolding the giant for his intimidating face as Yuki watches in disbelief. The others are quick to defend their friend, assuring her that despite his fearsome looks, he would never harm a girl. And in that moment, her entire worldview shatters. These thugs. They aren't what the rumors claimed at all. Seeing the most terrifying of them all gently holding two small dolls, she confronts a horrifying question: was she the one who was wrong? She realizes her own prejudice makes her no different from the faceless crowd that judges her for her family name. And with that, the walls she built came crumbling down. As she finally began to find her place among Sagara's group, we're thrown back in time, to an era where a timid student approaches Yuki Ishikawa, a girl held on a pedestal by her peers. She's secretly thrilled to hear that even the commoners have recommended her for a student council position. The boy, recognizing her reputation for keeping the school pristine, formally invites her to lead the beautification committee. Yuki plays her part perfectly, feigning humble consideration while clearly basking in the admiration. But in a flash of violence, the peaceful scene is shattered as the boy is brutally yanked away from her. It's the giant, Haramoto, his face twisted in rage as he questions who would dare to even speak to someone of Ishikawa's status. Before things can escalate, a calm hand rests on Yuki's shoulder at Sagara, the school's golden boy, stepping in to stop the fight. He gently leads her away from the confrontation, assuring her that everything is fine, leaving Yuki utterly confused by his sudden appearance. But his parting words aren't of peace. With a serene smile, he reminds the other student that a person like Ishikawa is far too respected to be asked to pick up trash. And in that chilling moment, Yuki begins to understand that the perfect Sagara she once knew was hiding a completely different, and far more terrifying, personality. Her instincts scream that something is wrong. Sagara's protection feels less like friendship and more like a deliberate attempt to isolate her from everyone else. Suddenly, a desperate cry shatters the tension as a student rushes toward them, tears streaming down her face, screaming Yuki's name. Without another word, the hysterical girl clings to Yuki, sobbing as if she's her last and only hope in the world. The reason for her despair is revealed. The weightlifting club, her entire world, is being shut down because of budget cuts, and she has nowhere else to turn. With desperate eyes, she begs Yuki to intervene, absolutely convinced that for the legendary Ishikawa, a problem like this is nothing. Playing the part of the benevolent leader, Yuki smiles calmly and agrees to cover all the costs herself, a simple solution for a person of her stature. But the gratitude she receives is terrifyingly extreme, as Sagara and Haramoto force the girl to kneel in worship, a disturbing display of loyalty that Yuki quietly accepts. The moment Yuki's back is turned, however, the girl's desperate tears vanish, replaced by a sinister, calculating smile as she prepares her next move. Her entire emotional breakdown was a lie, a carefully orchestrated performance made possible with a simple bottle of eye drops. And as the school day winds down, the stage is set for the next phase of this intricate plot, with Yuki completely unaware of the trap she's just walked into. Back in the clubroom, the architects of the deception complain about their duties, with Yuki sitting among them, completely oblivious to the danger she's in. As the day ends, she casually says her goodbyes and leaves the room, walking away from the very people plotting her downfall. Settling into the comfort of her private car, Yuki enjoys a moment of peace, showcasing a life of privilege far removed from the school's dark underbelly. A simple, spur-of-the-moment request to stop for sushi is made, an innocent detour that she has no idea is buying her enemies more time. But elsewhere, the true face of the school is revealed, as a student is forced to stuff his face until he chokes back tears of pain. The classroom has been turned into a gambling den, with students eagerly placing bets on the cruel spectacle unfolding before them. This is no simple schoolyard game. It's a full-blown, live-streamed eating contest, organized by a ruthless crew for cold, hard cash. And at the top of this food chain are Sagara Tetsuya and his enforcer, Haramoto, the leaders of the underdog crew, counting the profits from their twisted operation. But Sagara isn't satisfied. The money they've collected is nothing, a mere stepping stone for a much larger, more ambitious plan. He coldly reasserts his authority over his own second-in-command, a chilling reminder of the absolute control he wields over everyone in his path. Haramoto's patience is wearing thin, questioning how long they'll keep playing nice with the rich girl, Ishikawa. But Sagara, cool and collected, reminds him that manipulating someone of her stature is a delicate game. He reveals his true, venomous intent. Once she's fully in his grasp, he plans to extort her for everything. Suddenly, their scheming is shattered as the door is thrown open, exposing the grim reality of their live-stream torture. The room descends into chaos as their victim finally breaks, forcing Sagara to desperately try and control the narrative for his audience. But amidst the panic, he feels a presence, a flicker of movement in the reflection of the classroom door. Furious at being watched, he bursts out of the room, demanding to know who dared to spy on them. The hallway is empty, silent save for a single object dropped in haste on the floor. It's a tray of expensive sushi, a clue that could unravel everything they've built. And in a chilling moment of realization, Sagara's expression hardens as he understands their perfect plan has just been witnessed by the one person who can destroy it. Sagara and his accomplice stand at the end of the hall, their dark intentions now laid bare to the one person who overheard everything. And that witness, Yuki, can only hide and tremble in terror, the crushing weight of their venomous plot completely suffocating her. Her mind flashes back through every moment of their supposed friendship, realizing with dawning horror that it was all a meticulously crafted lie. Overwhelmed by betrayal and fear, she flees through the school, her heart pounding with a single, desperate question. What can she possibly do now? She retreats from the world, hiding under her covers and skipping school, too terrified to face the malice that now waits for her in those halls. Her isolation is absolute, a pariah surrounded by the very monsters who orchestrated her downfall, with no option but to consider running away entirely. But even transferring is impossible. How could she ever explain to her prestigious family that she was a fool, and risk bringing shame upon their entire corporation? Her fragile peace is shattered when Sagara himself appears, his voice dripping with false concern as he questions her absence, slowly tightening his grip. Forced to play along, she concocts a weak lie about running away from home, desperately trying not to show weakness as he pulls her closer into his web. He offers to get a parfait, a simple, innocent invitation that feels like a death sentence, a final, chilling move to pull his struggling prey back into the darkness. The chilling realization begins to dawn on Yuki. There's a terrifying reason why everyone is whispering and keeping their distance. Even a seemingly normal student she tries to approach flinches away, making a clumsy excuse to escape her presence. But as he leaves, he glances back with a look that isn't fear or disgust. It's a silent, knowing confirmation of her status as an outcast. Her mind flashes back, clinging to the desperate hope that her best friend might have been the one person to stand by her side. That hope is violently crushed as she hides in a bathroom stall, overhearing her friends plotting their next scheme now that she's out of the picture. It all comes crashing down: the friendship, the laughter, the trust. It was all an elaborate, cruel lie from the very beginning. She walks away from school, each step heavy with dread, feeling the weight of 1,000 invisible eyes judging her. Lost in the bustling city, she's completely alone, a ghost searching for a single ally in a world that has turned against her. At her breaking point, she sits down, her heart crying out for just one person she can rely on in this suffocating darkness. And as if summoned by her despair, a mysterious man appears, recognizing her as a runaway and offering an invitation to a place known only as the Runaway Crew Kingdom. She weighs the offer, a desperate thought crossing her mind. Could this runaway crew be the key to her revenge? If she joins them, she might finally gain the power she needs to stand up to the bullies who destroyed her life. The man asks for her name, and she introduces herself as Yuki, though a deep suspicion tells her she's just trading one set of users for another. He immediately hands her a suspicious package, and her blood runs cold as she realizes she might be getting involved in something far more dangerous than she ever imagined. Panicked, she flees to a shelter instead, but her nightmare follows as she's immediately cornered and attacked by thugs. Suddenly, a mysterious figure intervenes, saving her in a flash of violence, and she can only look up and ask why a total stranger would help her. She stands before the imposing silhouette, surrounded by unconscious bodies, completely baffled by her savior's motives. He turns away, his back a wall of pure muscle, and declares that you don't need a reason to save someone who's in trouble. But his true purpose explodes into the open as he reveals he's looking for his own sister, a girl who shares her name, Yuki. As she clings to the arm of this powerful stranger, a fragile hope ignites. Perhaps this man is the ally she's been praying for. A new predator appears, his smile hiding a chilling question for the transfer student protecting Yuki. He confronts them both directly, questioning their alliance and asserting his dominance in the school's twisted hierarchy. Meanwhile, on the school rooftop, a new faction emerges, revealing Yuki's desperate move was just a bid to escape an even darker crew. Their leader, a mysterious girl with cold eyes, declares that Takakura's war has now become their war. But even she admits the grim truth: their enemy is on a completely different level of depravity. They're cowards who play dirty, a force so twisted that Takakura was the only one brave enough to face them head-on. With the name of their true target finally spoken, Sagara doubt creeps in, just as his presence is felt nearby. And in a shocking twist of fate, the two groups suddenly converge, as Takakura and Yuki appear before the would-be revolutionaries. But the true horror is revealed in a flashback. Sagara had already made his move, welcoming his new target with an outstretched hand. And Takakura, walking straight into the serpent's den, shakes on a deal that will surely lead to his own destruction. Despite the horrifying deal he just made, Takakura casually refers to Sagara as a good person, leaving Yuki to spiral in disbelief at his complete misunderstanding. But his crew ignores her panic, their minds racing with a far more critical theory that Takakura's insane power comes from being reincarnated from another world. Their sudden otaku-fueled fanaticism leaves Takakura completely baffled, wondering if his friends have finally gone crazy. He shakes it off and formally introduces a bewildered Yuki as the newest member of his crew, Amida, a name she can barely comprehend. The true reason for this alliance is revealed in a quick flashback, a much younger Haruka, explaining she came to the commander for help finding her sister. Takakura reaffirms his vow to protect Yuki, but she's already having second thoughts about relying on this bizarre group of delinquents. But for Takakura, there is no debate. He declares that as members of Amida, their one sacred rule is that they always protect their own. His declaration ignites a fire in his crew, who raise their fists and let out a passionate war cry in the name of their brotherhood. The rooftop echoes with their unified shouts, a powerful, if not slightly unhinged, display of absolute loyalty. But as the boys rally behind their leader, Yuki looks on in utter dismay, seriously questioning if she just entrusted her life to a bunch of complete idiots. Just as the delinquents pledge their loyalty, Takakura realizes their new charge, Midori, has completely vanished. Overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of her new protectors, a blushing Midori sneaks away down the school stairwell. Peeking into the hallway, she panics, wondering how she can possibly face a certain teacher after all this chaos. Just then, a handsome and well-dressed teacher appears, walking calmly down the hall with another student. He spots Midori immediately, his friendly greeting catching her completely off guard. Flustered, she tries to flee the awkward encounter, but he stops her with a simple question. His dazzling smile and genuine concern for her problems completely melt her defenses. A gentle pat on the head sends a shock through her system as she realizes with a blush that he remembered her. Watching him walk away, she's utterly captivated, convinced he's the kindest and most handsome person she's ever met. But their seemingly innocent conversation ends as he leads the other student into the career counseling office, where a private consultation is about to begin. But behind the closed doors of the counseling office, the kind teacher's mask shatters as he forcefully strips the jacket from his student. He lifts her onto a desk, his voice a chilling whisper promising to take care of everything as she stammers his name in confusion. His grip tightens on her arm, a silent, unnerving display of dominance that betrays his gentle words. Yet just as suddenly, he pulls back, postponing their session with a cryptic promise to call her again later. The moment the door closes behind her, his friendly expression vanishes, replaced by one of cold, calculating thought. But he wasn't alone. Sagara was waiting in the shadows, and Yamada's tone shifts from predatory to pure irritation. Sagara, ever the provocateur, mockingly comments on the teacher's fun, letting him know his dark secret has been witnessed. Trying to seize the upper hand, he asks about a previous proposal, only for Yamada to shut him down with a single, decisive no. Yamada explains that the higher-ups have frozen all underground business, but casually mentions that his own personal connections are still very much active. With a predatory smile, he leans in, completely flipping the power dynamic. It's not about Sagara's proposal anymore. It's about his. Sagara admits his utter defeat, realizing that even with his entire crew, he stands no chance against their new enemy. Forced into a corner, he swallows his pride and begs Yamada for the one thing that can turn the tide: the power of the Special Activity Unit. But his plea is met with brutal dominance as Yamada slams his head violently into the wooden desk. The teacher grabs his hair, coldly reminding him that there's a proper way to ask for a favor from your superior. Yamada leans in, correctly guessing that for Sagra to come crawling back, he must be facing an impossibly powerful threat. He whispers his terms, making it clear that this isn't a partnership. Sagara is now his pawn, with a long list of tasks to complete. With the threat of what happens if he breaks their contract hanging in the air, Sagara has no choice but to agree. The deal is struck, and Yamada prepares to unleash his secret weapon, the shadowy, inhuman figures of the Special Activity Unit. The battlefield then shifts, showing Takakura and his friends now officially under the protection of Millennium, a force that will eliminate all their enemies. A new alliance is forged, and as the school stands waiting, an ominous greeting declares the start of an all-out war. The man at the center of this storm makes his grand entrance, introducing himself as Goro Takakura. His teacher explains has a transfer from the countryside, a complete outsider to this city's brutal power games. But the whispers immediately begin, the other students mocking his old-fashioned style, completely unaware of the monster in their midst. He's directed to the only empty seat, right next to a girl with striking blue hair who looks less than thrilled by this new arrangement. Yet, despite his delinquent appearance, Goro bows with an almost comical level of respect, surprising his new teacher. As he makes his way to his desk, he passes another future ally, the quiet, bullied hacker watching his every move. Even Yuki, another crucial piece of this puzzle, watches with disinterest as the new dynamic of the class begins to form. He plops down next to the blue-haired girl, Midori, greeting her with a familiarity that only makes her more uncomfortable. Seeing he doesn't have a textbook, Midori sighs and offers to share hers, a small gesture of kindness in a class full of judgment. But Goro's attention span is limited, as he immediately passes out, leaving her completely stunned at his audacity. But as he slumbers, his mind drifts back to a memory of a life far different from this one, a time when he was a guardian. In this dream, he's not a fighter, but a caretaker, carefully preparing a lunchbox and calling out to a sleepy little girl. That little girl is Yuki, and in this past, Goro was the one who woke her up and smiled as she started her day. He meticulously packs her lunch, a quiet moment of domestic peace that clashes with the monster he's known to be. With a gentle wave, he sends her off to kindergarten, a loving protector watching over his precious charge. Once she's gone, his own day begins, a confident smile spreading across his face as he prepares for school. He quickly packs his own simple meal and slicks his hair into that iconic pompadour, transforming into the delinquent we recognize. But as he hops on his bike, the dream begins to bleed into reality, with his new classmate Midori suddenly appearing beside him. The world of the past dissolves as a voice shouts for him to wake up, violently pulling him back to the present. He groggily opens his eyes, the sweet memory gone, replaced by the annoyed face of Midori telling him it's finally lunchtime. Goro, a man displaced from his own era, realizes he's completely unprepared for the simple realities of modern school life. A wave of pure disbelief washes over him as he processes a concept that shouldn't be possible. His world is shattered by the sight of a bustling school cafeteria, a luxury he could never have imagined. While he panics at this impossible future, Midori calmly explains that this is just the new normal, calling his reaction absurd. His classmates can only stare, wondering just what kind of backwater delinquent they're dealing with who's never seen a cafeteria before. But for Goro, holding a tray with a warm meal is a moment of profound, almost spiritual significance. He remembers the past, the painstaking effort of waking up early to pack lunches for someone he cared for. Sitting down, he gives thanks, quietly realizing that even without him, the world has slowly been moving forward. Yet, just as a moment of peace settles, a familiar glint appears in his eye, as if something is still deeply wrong. With a smirk, he reveals his true nature, deciding that if the world has changed, he'll just have to change the flavor to match his own tastes. But his moment of peace is shattered by the sight of bullies live-streaming their cruelty, pouring an entire shaker of pepper onto a helpless student's meal. When the victim hesitates, a brutal slap to the head sends him reeling, the bullies demanding he eat for the sake of their twisted video. Just as they're about to force-feed him the pepper-caked monstrosity, a voice cuts through the noise, filled with a chilling rage over the desecration of a precious meal. In an instant, a blur of motion erupts from nowhere, and one of the bullies is sent flying before he can even process what's happening. His companion meets the exact same fate, both thugs laid out on the cafeteria floor in a takedown so fast it was barely even a fight. The transfer student, Goro, kneels before them, holding the ruined meal with a chilling seriousness and delivering an utterly impossible order. The bullied student, utterly bewildered, can't understand the rage over cafeteria food. but Goro is about to teach him a lesson on the true value of a meal. His eyes burn with the fury of a man from another time, his voice low and dangerous as he repeats his command with absolute finality. Now on their knees, the tormentors become the tormented, feeling the weight of 100 silent, judging eyes as the crowd whispers about their downfall. Frozen in pure terror, they finally understand their mistake. They haven't just provoked another student, they've awakened a monster. In a desperate act of defiance, one of the bullies tries to use his own weapon against the monster, tossing a handful of pepper. But Goro is on another level, contemptuously slapping the bully's hand away as the thug screams in pure frustration. His twin brother isn't so lucky, recoiling in agony as the stinging powder hits him directly in the face. Done playing games, the twins escalate the fight to a lethal new stage, pulling out knives as the entire cafeteria watches in horror. Just as they lunge, an utterly bizarre event occurs. Goro lets out a simple sneeze that seems to bend the very air around him. The sheer force of the sneeze is impossible, a concussive blast that stops the knife-wielding attackers dead in their tracks. Meanwhile, a student completely lost in his own world yawns, blissfully unaware of the deadly battle unfolding just a few feet away. He casually enjoys his meal, as the fight becomes a chaotic blur in the background, a storm he refuses to even acknowledge. But his perfect bubble of apathy is violently shattered when the debris from the fight splatters across his tray, ruining his lunch. The twins make one final, desperate charge, screaming for Goro's death, only to be met by the full, unbelievable power of a single sneeze. But the fight isn't over, as a dark, terrifying aura explodes from the student whose lunch was just ruined. With blinding speed, he unleashes a devastating kick, instantly flooring one of the bullies while his crew watches in shock. He stands over his victim with cold indifference, his rage palpable as he tells him he's nothing but a piece of trash. The remaining bully recognizes him with dawning horror, but the headphone-wearing student grabs him by the face, his focus absolute. In the aftermath, with both attackers lying unconscious, Goro is left wondering what just happened as his sneezing fit finally subsides. Two girls rush over to thank Goro, calling him a hero, but he's more concerned about the quiet student who actually finished the fight. But the student simply dismisses the thanks, claiming he wasn't trying to save anyone as he puts his headphones back on. Goro suddenly panics, shouting for him to wait, pointing out that his expensive headphone wire was severed during the brawl. The student stares blankly before explaining the concept of Bluetooth, a term so alien Goro mistakes it for a rock band. Borrowing the mysterious device, the old-school delinquent is instantly transported, finding a state of pure bliss in a world of wireless music. Goro is baffled by the strange magic of wireless music, only to be told he's listening to Beethoven, a fact that confuses the old-school brawler even more. As a peace offering, the mysterious student, Sagura, treats Goro to lunch, a silent apology for the earlier chaos. The meal begins with tension as Midori complains about their strange new companion, but Goro just laughs off her hostility. But the strange mood escalates when Sagura begins pouring an absurd amount of pepper onto his food, prompting Goro to shout in alarm. The pepper cloud backfires, triggering a cataclysmic sneeze from Goro that erupts directly across the table. Sagura sits perfectly still, his face completely covered as a wave of cold, unreadable silence hangs in the air. Goro frantically tries to apologize for the mess, while the girls at the table recoil in utter disgust. But Sagura simply walks away with a faint smile, finding this loud, strange delinquent to be an interesting new variable. His calm is broken by a sudden alert on his phone, his expression instantly hardening with focus. A new mission is afoot, as the scene cuts to a massive, unfinished skyscraper, signaling the start of a new operation. Inside an abandoned building, a group of thieves celebrate a massive score, a bag stuffed with enough product to set them up for life. They huddle together, giddy with their success, completely oblivious to the fact that their perfect crime is about to unravel. But their celebration is cut short by a calm, chilling voice from the shadows, questioning their half-baked escape plan. Startled, they demand to know who this stranger is, but Sagara simply scoffs at their pathetic attempt to steal goods they were meant to deliver. With a deadpan expression, he reveals the terrifying truth. He's here on behalf of Millennium, the very organization they just betrayed. And in the blink of an eye, the entire crew is left broken and unconscious, a completely one-sided slaughter. With the job done, Sagra makes a call, questioning why his handler is breaking protocol by communicating directly. He wonders why his contact would risk showing up to a scene like this, a rare and unsettling move. The man on the other end is revealed to be Mr. Yamada, who calmly claims he was just checking in on his prized student. But his true thoughts reveal the terrifying scale of Sagra's power. He didn't just beat them, he effortlessly dismantled a group of armed opponents. Mr. Yamada reflects on his first impression of the boy, Standing over a field of broken bodies, he knew from the start that Sagara was a monster. He approaches his prized student, questioning why he looks so dissatisfied after such an effortless, one-sided victory. But for a prodigy like Sagara, a fight without a challenge isn't a victory, it's just plain boring. He is an absolute genius of combat, a predator so far beyond his prey that the thrill of the hunt is completely gone. With the job done, he hands over the package, confirming the mission was a success and the intel was flawless. As his handler walks away, he asks Fujita Sagara's codename if he's having any fun after a year in their special unit. With a dead look in his eyes, Sagara confesses he isn't. He's tired of this grunt work and craves something more. A sly smile creeps across Yamada's face as he reveals that a new, far more interesting job has just come in. He promises an incredibly special mission, one he's sure will finally be to Sagara's liking. To seal the deal, a massive stack of cash hits the floor, an advance for the dangerous operation that lies ahead. The leader of a small-time crew reveals a shocking new alliance. They're now officially backed by the shadowy organization known as Millennium. His underlings are stunned by the sheer amount of cash, already dreaming of the power and territory this new partnership will bring. But he cuts through their celebration with a grim warning, knowing this deal isn't a gift, it's a poisoned chalice. He understands the truth. Mr. Yamada is merely Millennium's middleman, using their immense financial backing as bait to lure in desperate crews. What they see as a badge of honor is nothing more than a slave's collar, forcing them into dirty work under the control of Yamada's mysterious special activity unit. And the members of this unit are complete phantoms. Their numbers, their identities, even their very nature are shrouded in absolute mystery. Yet he pushes the fear aside, steeling his resolve. He'll walk into this trap with his eyes open, all for the sake of securing his own power. The scene then shifts to a cold philosophy. The idea that all humans are equal is a lie, for society is nothing but a brutal caste system. And in a flashback to this merciless world, one student is announced to be at the absolute pinnacle. Sagara Tetsuya, first place once again. He was the perfect specimen, handsome, intelligent, from a wealthy family, a young man who was supposed to be living the perfect life, but that perfection was a cage. But beneath the surface, his perfect world was already a collapsing ruin. Starting with the single devastating phone call that announced his family's bankruptcy, the poison of failure seeped into his home, turning his parents against each other in a storm of bitter accusations and shattered pride. With his family's honor destroyed, Sagara's own foundation began to crack, his grades slipping, as he came to see his parents as nothing but worthless burdens. His friends, once a source of status, now became a threat, their whispers following him down the hall as they noticed his sudden change in behavior. He could hear them mocking his newfound gloominess, and with every word, he felt his carefully constructed social standing plummet into nothingness. Refusing to accept this fall from grace, Sagara makes a choice, approaching his friend with a dangerous proposition. It's time to form their own crew. A pact is sealed on that rooftop. One would be the muscle, the other the mind, with Sagara now taking his first steps as a leader. And just like that, they began their operation, using brute force to claw back the status and power that money had once afforded him. However, just as he began to reclaim his position through violence, a new, unexpected threat emerged within the school's hallowed halls. He was no longer the undisputed king, as a student named Ishikawa had just taken first place, shattering Sagara's last claim to superiority. His final claim to superiority is stolen by a girl named Ishikawa Yuki, and Sagara feels his world crumbling as he glares at the one who took what was his. Twisted by jealousy and a thirst for power, he makes a dark vow: if he can't beat her, he'll own her, no matter what it takes. His desperation grows, pushing him to consider hiring an outside crew, the notorious Special Activity Unit from Millennium, to deal with his rivals. But his partner reminds him of the grim reality. They've already been crushed by the transfer student twice, and one more failure will spell the end of their entire crew. As they scheme in the weightlifting clubroom, the slow creak of the door opening sends a jolt of panic through them. Their hearts pound as they see a pair of shoes step inside, their minds racing with the fear that a teacher has discovered their hideout. But the person who enters is no teacher, just another student, whose casual entrance immediately sets the delinquents on edge. The newcomer, Fujita, calmly states that a Mr. Yamada sent him, completely ignoring the tension in the room. Sagara's muscle steps up, ordering the intruder to get lost, trying to reassert dominance over their private territory. Yet, the boy simply yawns in his face, displaying an unbelievable level of disrespect before asking a single, chilling question. Who's the leader here? Sagara's enforcer roars that he's the boss, throwing a punch meant to end the conversation right there. But the mention of Yamada sends a spike of terror through Sagara, who screams for his man to stop, realizing his fatal mistake far too late. Before the punch can even land, a sickening impact freezes the big man in his tracks, his face contorting in pure agony. In the blink of an eye, he's sent crashing to the floor, as Sagara realizes with dawning horror this kid is from the legendary Special Activity Unit. The onlookers are left stunned, completely unable to process the instantaneous, one-sided beatdown they just witnessed. Fujita brutally pounds the downed delinquent, coldly stating he was promised something entertaining would be waiting for him here. With his foot crushing the man's arm, he delivers a chilling ultimatum. Give him something interesting, or this arm will never move again. Sagara stares, paralyzed by the reveal this monster was the very weapon he had considered hiring, now turned against him. A sickening crunch echoes as Fujita stomps down again, his quiet rage escalating as the brute screams in agony. In a desperate last-ditch effort, Sagara shoves his phone forward, begging the boy to look, hoping to offer a target worthy of his attention. With a twisted grin, Sagara presents a photo of his new proposal, a single target to satisfy the monster's boredom. Fujita's gaze locks onto the screen, a flicker of recognition in his eyes as he studies the face before him. Sensing victory, Sagara promises to orchestrate the entire affair, a perfect stage for the thrill he knows Fujita desires. The scene shifts, revealing the target, a high school girl named Midori, walking to class under the protection of a personal guard. Her stoic bodyguard remarks that the job has been far less trouble than he anticipated, much to her unamused silence. But his idea of protection is a fanatical devotion, even following her to the bathroom door, earning him a furious outburst. As the day ends, Midori tries to dismiss him, only to be called over by her friend, Yuki. Yuki stops them, a sudden realization dawning as she questions why the two of them are always arriving and leaving together. Her bodyguard casually drops a bombshell: they live together, a statement that sends Yuki into a flustered panic. The revelation hits Midori like a lightning bolt, leaving her utterly speechless, as she demands to know what their relationship truly is. To quell her friend's panic, Midori slaps her guard silent and hastily explains they're distant relatives, an uncle and niece forced into a strange living situation. She immediately whispers furiously at him for revealing even that much, as Yuki is clearly not equipped to handle the shocking truth. But Yuki's mind is already spiraling, her imagination running wild with scandalous fantasies of what could happen with two teenagers living under one roof. She desperately offers to book him a hotel, but the bodyguard coolly dismisses her offer as he and Midori prepare to leave on his motorcycle. Flustered and defeated, Yuki can only point and scream, "Pervert!" leaving the guard completely baffled by the accusation. But this entire comedic exchange doesn't go unnoticed, as a pair of sinister eyes watch their every move from the shadows. The hunter, Fujita, has found his mark, a cold declaration confirming his prey is in sight. And his target isn't the girl, it's the bodyguard, a man he identifies by a single, chilling name, Goro Takakura. Back in the moment, the guard is left utterly confused, wondering how he possibly became the bad guy in all this. Suddenly, Yuki announces she's coming with them, determined to inspect their home personally to ensure it's safe, much to their shared bewilderment. Midori boldly declares that as his employer, she's taking full responsibility for the bodyguard's actions. Fed up with the bickering, she finally relents, allowing Yuki to come along despite her complaints about the house being a mess. But as the trio heads for the motorcycle, two figures watch their every move from the shadows, their hunt about to begin. The predator, Fujita, and his partner Sagara have their eyes locked on, their expressions cold and determined. And their one and only target is the unsuspecting bodyguard, a man they know as Goro Takakura. With a single, chilling hand gesture, Sagara signals his hidden forces to move in. The order is given, and a wave of bodies surges forward to spring the ambush. But just as they close in, Goro stops, a sudden, sharp spike of killing intent putting him on high alert. He turns and scans the crowd, his instincts screaming that a threat is closing in fast. And there, standing brazenly in the open, are the two hunters, identified by the strange codenames Salad and Fry. Goro stands confused as his companions question his sudden alert, completely unaware of the danger closing in. But the hunters are patient, as Sagara reveals his plan was never a simple ambush. He had his crew tail Goro for days, gathering intelligence on everyone and everything connected to him. His subordinates confirm the next phase is in motion, moving to strike Goro at his most vulnerable, his own home. And in a chilling reveal, Sagara admits that the fearsome Fujita is nothing more than a pawn in his grand design. His true obsession is laid bare. He sees himself as a puppeteer, and his only goal is to reclaim Ishikawa, severing any loose ends like Goro to do it. Fujita questions the sheer scale of the operation, wondering if this is all just a personal grudge, but Sagara coldly deflects. The hunter's patience wears thin, warning his partner that this elaborate game had better be worth the trouble. Sagara just smiles, a promise of a perfect, bloody finale gleaming in his eyes. The scene then cuts to the target's home, where a frantic voice echoes, signaling the trap is already being set. At the target's home, the training is brutal, pushing a young trainee past his breaking point. The legendary bodyguard, Goro Takakura, roars for more, his voice echoing with the demand for absolute focus. But his students are only human, and one by one they collapse, completely wiped out from the hellish regimen. Goro offers a rare word of encouragement to one of the boys, who can barely stand under the weight of exhaustion and praise. But then, in a strange moment, the boy's hand flies up near Goro's face, catching the seasoned fighter completely by surprise. Before he can react, the other trainees suddenly swarm the boy, lifting him up in a bizarre display of camaraderie. Goro looks on, stunned, realizing the kid is far more toned than he first appeared, a hidden strength beneath the surface. The commotion is interrupted by Midori's weary sigh, as she questions what new brand of idiocy her guards are up to now. Inside, Ishikawa explains their chaotic methods are preparation for a war with a gang known only as Millennium. And as she offers a cup of tea, a fragile moment of peace settles, all of them oblivious to the hunters patiently waiting to strike. Despite her pampered upbringing, Midori takes a tentative sip of tea, wondering what the common world tastes like. She's genuinely shocked by the rich flavor, questioning how they could make something so good without a proper teapot. The simple act makes her question all the pointless, complex etiquette training she was forced to endure. Forgetting her status for a moment, she happily asks for another cup, which Ishikawa is glad to provide. But the moment of peace shatters as she remembers the impossible stakes. A group of high schoolers versus a major corporation. Ishikawa calmly explains that this isn't a game. The kids fighting Millennium are dead serious. Midori recalls her own grandfather's words, confirming that Millennium is a front, expanding its power through Yakuza and illegal operations. She confronts Ishikawa, unable to understand why they'd provoke an enemy whose true capabilities are a complete mystery. But a new voice cuts in as Goro enters the room, stating with cold certainty that some fights you simply can't run from. His mind flashes with painful memories of someone precious being hospitalized, and he makes a silent vow to make Millennium pay for everything. The intense atmosphere shatters as Goro comically panics over a simple robot vacuum, completely breaking his tough guy image. Watching the chaos unfold, Midori falls into a silent, deadpan contemplation, wondering if these two could possibly be the masterminds she's supposed to trust in a war against a corporation. But instead of leaving, she makes a sudden declaration that shocks them both. She's staying over. With unwavering conviction, she vows to watch them all night, determined to judge their true capabilities for herself. As night falls and Goro departs, the house settles into a quiet vigil. Yet just moments later, all of Midori's fierce resolve vanishes as she's found completely passed out, sleeping like a rock. Ishikawa can only look on in amusement, pulling the covers over the so-called princess, who sleeps like a total mess. She quietly confirms to Goro that their high-profile guest is so deep in sleep, she's completely vulnerable. It's a stark contrast to her arrival, where she showed up with an entire entourage and a mountain of luggage for a single night, a reminder of the two completely different worlds now colliding under one roof. Ishikawa breaks the silence, questioning Goro about the distant, haunted look in his eyes. His gaze was fixed on a simple wooden pillar, marked with dates from a lifetime ago, a silent record of memories he can't escape. A painful past surfaces, a time when this house was filled with warmth as he carefully marked the growth of his little girl, Yuki. He remembers the innocent promises of amusement parks and playful arguments over hated vegetables, echoes of a happiness now lost. In the present, only the ghost of her laughter remains, a phantom image of a child proudly showing off how much she's grown. For Goro, this entire house has become a mausoleum. Every corner holds a painful trace of the daughter he can no longer protect. He can almost see her still, a vibrant echo running through the halls, forever on the verge of greeting him, but the illusion shatters, leaving only the cold, crushing silence of her absence. As Goro is consumed by grief, wishing he could join the daughter who hated being alone, Ishikawa offers a quiet, steadying presence. Then, in a surprising gesture of kindness, she offers him a small token, hoping to pull him back from the edge of his despair. Goro steps into his old room, now just a cold storage space, a monument to a life that has long since vanished. He sits with the album Midori lent him, a simple book holding an unknown weight from the past. But as he opens it, his eyes widen in shock. This isn't just any collection of memories. It's a chronicle of a life he missed: his daughter's school days, her triumphs, her graduation, a ghost from a past he wasn't there for. Meanwhile, in a world of blinding luxury, a woman with an unbreakable presence makes her grand entrance. She's met at the front desk, her cool demeanor and hidden eyes betraying absolutely nothing. When asked for a name, she almost says Takakura, a name tied directly to the grieving father. But then she reveals her face, and with a chilling smile, gives the name of his dead daughter Suzuki Yuki. At that very moment, Goro himself arrives, stepping out of his car and into the heart of the mystery. The enigmatic woman is escorted like a queen, completely unaware that the man whose life she just shattered is now in the very same building. In a world of blinding luxury, a woman with an unbreakable presence makes her grand entrance. She's met at the front desk, her cool demeanor and hidden eyes betraying absolutely nothing. When asked for a name, she almost says Takakura, a name tied directly to the grieving father. But then she reveals her face, and with a chilling smile, gives the name of his dead daughter, Suzuki Yuki. Without question, she's handed an ornate key, her appointment with the manager already arranged. She's led not through the main floor, but up a private staircase and into a hidden corridor, a path meant only for the privileged few. With a quiet click, she unlocks a heavy steel door, stepping into the secret heart of the establishment. Behind it lies not an office, but a lavish, clandestine bar, a secret playground for the city's most powerful figures. She's immediately recognized by an older gentleman, the manager, whose face lights up with a shocked but familiar welcome. But he quickly catches himself, correcting her name from Taka to Suzuki, a telling slip that proves he knows the truth behind her stolen identity. The manager welcomes her warmly, assuring her that she has powerful allies who are ready to help her cause. He reveals his name, Matsumoto Shinichi, and his motive becomes chillingly clear. He despises the organization known as Millennium. As he pours a drink, he declares that all he wants is the truth, vowing that one day their enemies will pay for their rotten deeds. He then gets to the heart of their plan, asking if she still possesses the secret ledgers that hold the key to their enemy's downfall. She confirms with a cold smile that she made copies, but explains that when she tried to leak them to the police, the evidence simply vanished. The manager scoffs, dismissing the police as corrupt and useless, proposing a far more dangerous plan, getting the prosecutors on their side. But the weight of this war is clearly taking its toll, as she admits the constant stress has left her sleepless and exhausted. Sensing her fatigue, he insists she rest, deciding their strategy session can wait until she's recovered her strength. Thanking him for his consideration, she prepares to leave, the first step of their dangerous alliance concluded. But as another woman expresses disappointment at her early departure, the manager's silent, watchful gaze hints at a much deeper game being played. But their quiet alliance is about to be shattered, as a sleek car screeches to a halt outside the hotel, its arrival signaling imminent danger. The doors are violently kicked in, as a man with blonde-tipped hair leads a team of enforcers, their hostile takeover beginning without a single word. Inside, Manager Matsumoto's meeting is interrupted by the sudden chaos, his companion crying out in terror as their sanctuary is breached. He looks up to find himself completely surrounded by men in black, an overwhelming force that has seized control of the room in an instant. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Matsumoto calmly dismisses the terrified woman, shielding her from the confrontation that is about to unfold. He tries to de-escalate by introducing himself as the manager, but the intruders make it clear they are not here for formalities. Their leader, a section chief from the infamous Millennium Construction, cuts straight to the chase, demanding the location of Takakura Yuki. Faced with this direct threat, Matsumoto simply raises his glass, his silent, defiant sip an answer in itself. Miles away, the very woman they're hunting knows her time is running out. A gun on the bed, a stark reminder that staying put is a death sentence. Realizing the enemy is closing in, she quickly changes plans, desperately searching for an escape by sea before she's finally tracked down. Her call is cut short by a sudden noise, a chilling realization that her secret location has been compromised. Outside her door, a heavily armed team claiming to be room service prepares to breach, their intentions anything but hospitable. These are Millennium's elite, cold-blooded killers ready to execute their target the moment the door opens. But the woman they're hunting is no easy prey, grabbing her revolver and steeling herself for the inevitable bloodshed. The door swings open, and for a split second, the ambush team is frozen by the unexpected sight that greets them. Yuki explodes from the doorway, gun blazing, turning their calculated assault into a chaotic, desperate firefight in the hall. Hunter and hunted are locked in a deadly standoff, a silent promise of violence hanging in the air. Yet when the squad finally storms the room, they find it completely empty. Their target has vanished like a ghost. The scene shifts, revealing Yuki holding a terrified woman at gunpoint, only to learn she's a messenger sent by the manager with a desperate warning. With the final piece of the puzzle in place, Yuki understands the truth. Millennium's net is closing, and her window to escape is down to mere seconds. Noguchi explodes with rage over the phone, furious that his informant lied and his target has vanished, threatening to tear the entire hotel apart. But his tirade is cut short by a thunderous slam, as a powerful presence makes itself known without saying a word. He turns to face the hotel's manager, Matsumoto, who coldly challenges the Millennium Enforcer's authority on his property. With chilling efficiency, the manager reveals the traitor who sold them the false intel, a sniveling coward confessing he did it for cash. And in a split second of shocking brutality, the price for that betrayal is paid in blood and shattered glass. Noguchi can only stare as the man screams, trying to appeal to their partnership, but the power dynamic has already been shattered. Wiping the blood from his hand, Matsumoto stands over the broken informant, making it clear there will be no second warning. His gaze radiates pure dominance, an unspoken threat that leaves no room for negotiation. Take your men and leave. The feared section chief of Millennium is completely shut down, his own squad watching as he's utterly humiliated. Forced to retreat with his tail between his legs, he remains oblivious to the truth. This was all a diversion, and Yuki has already slipped away. Manager Matsumoto stands in the aftermath, his part in this dangerous game now concluded. As he watches, the woman he just saved speeds through the city, her fate now entirely in her own hands. But as one story unfolds in the neon underworld, another begins in a high school classroom over a concert ticket, so rare it's considered a miracle. The ticket came from Ishikawa Yuki, a girl whose mysterious connections allow her to casually dismiss the awe of her classmates. Her friend Midori remarks on this sudden change in personality, a new kindness that feels strangely out of place. From the back of the room, Sagara watches them, his mind racing back to the day everything changed, the day the new transfer student, Takakura, arrived. He doesn't understand the man's true motives, but the results are undeniable. The school's worst delinquents have suddenly gone silent. With the bullies gone, Ishikawa and her friends seem to have finally found peace, a return to the normalcy they craved. Yet Sagara can't shake a chilling premonition, a deep-seated feeling that this newfound quiet is just a fragile illusion. And his greatest fear comes from the transfer student himself, a man who, despite bringing order, carries the cold, joyless expression of someone with a much darker purpose. Sagara's instincts scream as he learns of Takakura's solo mission into Nakano Ward, a dangerous hunt for a mysterious lead on someone named Yuki. But when Takakura uses Midori as an excuse to go alone, she immediately shuts him down, revealing she has her own secret plans. Ishikawa can only watch her friend's strange and evasive behavior, another crack forming in their fragile peace. Forced to continue his mission by himself, Takakura's resolve only deepens Sagara's concern for the lonely path he walks. With a cold, confident smirk, Takakura assures him he is anything but a child, a silent promise of the power he keeps hidden. But the target of this desperate search isn't a student. It's a 41-year-old woman, his mother, vanished without a trace. And somewhere else in the city, another man is on the same hunt, sitting calmly amidst the wreckage of a fight he just single-handedly won. He leaves a brutal message, plastering the faces of his defeated foes with missing posters, turning them into walking warnings. Just as he reflects on his troubles, a survivor rises from the ground, lifting a weapon for a cowardly attack from behind. But without even a glance, the brawler unleashes a devastating kick on another foe, a casual display of overwhelming power that proves this fight was never a contest. Drawn by the sounds of a battle, Sagara finally confronts Takakura, the lone wolf he's been observing from the shadows. A fragile truce forms as the two sit down, Takakura brushing off his intervention as a simple matter of protecting his own schoolmates from humiliation. Sagara probes deeper into Takakura's search, forcing him to admit the missing woman isn't just a stranger, but a close relative he desperately needs to find. With a grim expression, Sagara reveals a dark connection, blaming a girl named Mizuno for the chaos before leading Takakura towards a shocking new lead. The truth begins to unravel, a tale of debt, a powerful corporation, and Takakura's family being used as scapegoats, forcing them into hiding. He then points towards a group in the distance, where a familiar face stands among them, Midori, somehow connected to this entire web of lies. A dark vision emerges of the violent Roki crew, as Sagara reveals Midori didn't just know them, she started hanging out with them. And there she is, smiling and chatting with the very thugs at the center of this conspiracy, her allegiance now completely in question. The devastating realization hits Takakura like a physical blow. The person he's searching for vanished because of his own friend's betrayal. And in a quiet memory, we see the true weight of his mission, a lonely boy, poring over photos of the family he lost, fueling a promise made long ago. While Takakura is lost in the weight of his mission, Ishikawa quietly appears, offering to help him in his desperate search for his mother. She knows his pain, pleading that there must be something she can do to stand by his side. But elsewhere, the consequences of Takakura's actions are revealed, as the bandaged head of the Roki crew recounts his utter defeat. He admits to his men he's never been so completely dismantled, a beatdown that will take him weeks to recover from. His eyes narrow, recalling the overwhelming power of the man responsible for his humiliation. A brutal flashback shows a single, shadowy figure tearing through his entire gang, a fighter who was nothing short of a monster. Roki seethes, vowing revenge on the one he blames for this, Mizuno, only to be interrupted by a familiar voice. It's Midori, and her sudden appearance throws the thugs into a panic, terrified she's discovered their secret. She calmly asks about that guy, and they instantly know she means the delinquent who destroyed them. And with a chilling smile, she offers to call Takakura, a threat that exposes the truth. They're not his allies, they're his terrified victims. Midori casually drops a bombshell. The monster who destroyed Roki is now her classmate. The defeated thugs can only laugh in disbelief, unable to process a top-tier delinquent going back to school. But watching from across the street is Momoi Yuichiro, a gang executive with a dark history tied to this very situation. He sees Midori with the same old punks and seethes, convinced she's walking right back into danger. His anger is rooted in a bitter past, recognizing the faces of thugs he's dealt with before. A chilling thought crosses his mind. Could Midori be the reason Yuki vanished? Her entire story, a calculated lie. Beside him, his subordinate reveals this was all part of the plan. They've been tailing her, waiting for this exact moment. Unwilling to accept the deception, Momoi breaks cover, determined to confront her and hear the truth from her own lips. But it's a trap the moment he calls out. Police officers materialize from nowhere and seize him. The setup is complete, as a planted victim points him out as an attacker, a perfectly executed frame job that leaves him utterly powerless. As Momoi is dragged away by police, screaming that he only wanted to ask Midori a question, Sagara watches from the sidelines with a cold, triumphant smirk. The betrayal is confirmed as Sagara shakes hands with a plainclothes officer, revealing the entire arrest was a perfectly orchestrated setup. Meanwhile, Midori and the battered gang leader Roki are completely unaware, as she dismisses a faint, distant shout as just her imagination. Dropping all pretense, she gets straight to the point, demanding Roki tell her exactly how to get in contact with the powerful Millennium organization. But the beaten-down thug can only stammer in fear, his eyes locked on something terrifying standing just behind her. A chilling voice cuts in as Sagara appears from thin air, his presence radiating menace as he asks if she's here on Millennium business. Midori whirls around in utter shock, completely blindsided by the sudden appearance of the very man she was trying to uncover. Before she can even process it, Sagara's men move in, seizing her arms and proving that this was yet another one of his inescapable traps. Seeing the shift in power, Roki's own crew immediately bails, wanting no part in a fight against delinquents on a whole different level. With Midori completely cornered, Sagara calmly reveals his place in the food chain, a subcontractor for the very organization she sought, pulling strings from the shadows. Sagara leans in with a twisted smile, confirming he's part of Millennium, and warning Midori to stay put while he begins to dismantle her life. His voice drops to a cold whisper as he reveals his true plan, to turn her friends against each other and completely isolate Ishikawa once more. With a face devoid of all emotion, he declares that from this moment on, he will personally ensure Takakura and every last member of Amida are wiped out. Then, with a sudden, brutal crack, he slams his forehead into hers, a shocking display of violence meant to break her spirit. Though held back by his men, Midori screams in defiance, refusing to believe his twisted schemes could ever succeed, as he simply looks away in annoyance. In a moment of desperation, she spots a group of people in the distance and cries out for help, hoping for a miracle. But her hope shatters into pure horror as the figures turn, their faces nothing but disturbing, empty voids, revealing the true depth of the trap. Sagara simply scoffs at her pathetic attempt, mockingly asking if she really thought some hero was going to swoop in and save her. Before she can scream again, a hand suddenly clamps down hard over her mouth, silencing her mid-cry. His crew secures her, taping her mouth shut as she's completely overpowered, her struggle finally coming to a terrifying end. Her final moments of consciousness are filled with terror as she realizes the hand over her mouth holds an anesthetic patch. Sagara, bleeding from their earlier struggle, coldly looks down on her as she loses her fight to stay awake. With his prize secured, he gives the final order over the phone: take hostages, because it's time to bring Amida crashing down. Across the city, a lone Amida executive stands amidst a sea of defeated bodies, reporting that his side of the mission is already done. But this mysterious fighter, a man named Sato, seems completely bored with the carnage, wondering why he's even involved in this mess. Just then, the doors to the hideout slide open, and he angrily confronts the newcomers, warning them they have a death wish for interrupting him. However, The man stepping out of the shadows is Kimura Daichi, the infamous head of the Reaper crew, and he hasn't come alone. Completely unimpressed, Sato simply tells the rival boss to shut his mouth and listen up, his confidence bordering on absolute arrogance. In a blur of motion, he reveals his identity. He's from Amida, and lunges forward with explosive, terrifying speed. As Kimura screams for his men to kill him, Sato barrels headfirst into the enemy ranks, a one-man wrecking ball about to unleash hell. But instead of a fight, it's a complete rout, as Sato single-handedly smashes through Kimura's men with brutal efficiency. And then, just as suddenly as he attacked, he dives headfirst out the door, leaving the entire Reaper crew completely stunned by his bizarre retreat. Furious and confused, they scream at their underlings to chase him down, unable to comprehend what just happened. One of Kimura's men senses a trap, questioning why anyone would barge in alone only to immediately run away, but his partner tells him it doesn't matter. Blinded by rage, Kimura Daichi makes a fatal declaration of war, ordering his entire crew to hunt down and crush anyone wearing an Amida jacket. Meanwhile, across town, the real Amida gang is completely oblivious, holding their very first official assembly. But their leader, a man named Takakura, is nowhere to be seen, and the members wonder if they should even start without him. The young flag-bearer awkwardly practices his role, asking his friends if he has the right presence for the job. They just laugh, telling him he lacks the overwhelming aura of their true commander, a man whose reputation precedes him. As they joke around, one member snacking on sweets after training, they have no idea that Kimura's entire gang is now on the warpath, heading straight for them. The young flag-bearer turns with a hopeful smile, completely oblivious to the fact that he's just been found. Without warning, a Reaper enforcer lands a devastating blow from behind, kicking off the ambush with brutal, bone-shattering force. A wave of pure shock and pain washes over the young member's face as his mind goes completely blank. He collapses to the ground, as his friends can only watch in horror, the peaceful meeting instantly shattered by violence. In the blink of an eye, the entire field is swarmed, the small group of Amida members now hopelessly surrounded by the full might of the Reaper crew. With a bat resting on his shoulder and a sadistic grin, the Reaper captain makes a chilling declaration. Every last Amida punk is dead. But miles away, the one man who could stop this is powerless. Staring out from behind the bars of a police station, Momoe Yuichiro curses his fate. Trapped once again just as a sudden dispatch call cuts through the silence. The radio reports a student in an Amida jacket being jumped by a large group, and Momoa's face freezes in confusion. He lunges at the bars, screaming at the guard to turn up the radio, a dawning horror washing over him as he realizes his crew is being wiped out as part of a larger, sinister plan. His mind flashes back to another time, another place, triggered by the sickening realization that a ghost from his past has returned. The prison guard stammers in disbelief, recognizing a legendary name he thought he'd never see again. But Momoe's eyes are filled with a cold, desperate fire as he grips the bars, his only thought being to escape this cage immediately. The memory sharpens, focusing on a figure calmly sipping that same childish drink. He recalls being cornered and mocked, told that Amida was weak for such simple tastes. And then, the appearance of the true threat, the smirking captain of the Devil's crew, backed by his thugs and holding a bat. The young Amida deputy realizes with dawning horror that he walked right into a trap, and his boss isn't coming to save him. He's completely surrounded, a lone soldier lured deep into the heart of enemy territory for a one-sided slaughter. Yet he stands his ground, ready to take full responsibility to prevent an all-out war from erupting between the two gangs. But the Devil's captain's face twists into a demonic grin, his eyes glowing as he reveals the horrifying truth. War was the plan from the very beginning. The Devil's captain sneers, promising to make the young deputy pay for his foolish pride. And that payment will begin with the utter shattering of his right arm. With a sadistic grin, the thug brings the metal bat down with unstoppable force, a blur of wood and violence aimed to cripple him for life. A sickening crunch echoes through the air as the blow lands, a sound of bone and flesh giving way. But through the haze of pain, the deputy looks up in confusion. The strike never connected with him. Someone else has appeared from nowhere, taking the full, devastating impact of the attack meant for him. The thug's face twists in shock, his perfectly laid trap suddenly interrupted by an unexpected savior. Dazed and bleeding, the deputy stares up at the man who just took a bat to the back for him. And in a blaze of glory, his own boss appears, the commander of Amida, here to save his crybaby. The deputy screams for him to run, but the commander just smiles, his voice steady as he declares that Amida never abandons its own. The enemy leader smirks, mocking the commander for walking into a trap all alone just to uphold a foolish promise. With a single command, an entire army of thugs surges forward, a wave of violence meant to crush the two men where they stand. But the commander remains perfectly calm, a trail of blood on his face as he raises a single finger, giving a silent, chilling signal. The enemy leader glances back, his arrogance instantly replaced by confusion, as chaos erupts from behind his own lines. Because this was never a two-man army, the entire Amida crew explodes from the shadows, turning the hunters into the hunted. On the ground, the beaten deputy looks up in a daze as a hand reaches down, offering him a path out of the darkness. It's his boss, the commander, with a calm smile, here to personally pull his loyal soldier back from the brink of death. Overwhelmed by loyalty and relief, the deputy can only stare up with tears in his eyes, his faith completely rewarded. This very event triggers a powerful memory in an older man far away, who weeps as he recalls the legendary Bloody Tuesday. He stands before the commander himself, confirming that the rumors are true. The ghost everyone thought was gone has finally returned. Meanwhile, inside a secure facility, a legend behind bars is told he should have died 35 years ago, just as an urgent call reports his crew is being jumped. His old associate, Matsumoto, can only process the name Amida as he stares at the infamous Nishimura, a ghost from a bygone era. But Nishimura's focus is absolute, cutting him off with a single, burning priority: he has to go save his crew, and he has to go now. Elsewhere, an ordinary office worker wishes for a peaceful day, completely oblivious to the chaos about to shatter his mundane reality. In a deafening roar, a police car smashes directly through his office wall, turning his entire world into a storm of glass and twisted metal. He and a nearby officer are frozen in disbelief, unable to process the sheer insanity of a squad car appearing in their high-rise office. From the outside, the vehicle sits embedded in the building, a bizarre monument to destruction. But a quick check reveals the impossible: there's no driver. And through the ensuing panic, Nishimura and Matsumoto walk out completely unnoticed, their grand distraction providing the perfect cover. Matsumoto worries if their plan was too flashy, but Nishimura is calm, knowing their alibi is now airtight because no one got hurt. Because it was Matsumoto himself who drove the car, a loyal follower marveling at how the little crybaby he once knew grew into such a monster. As they walk, Matsumoto confesses his guilt, lamenting the boring, straight-laced adult he was forced to become. But with a surprising warmth, Nishimura places a hand on his shoulder, assuring him that it's never too late to fix his mistakes. The old man is visibly moved, but Nishimura quickly cuts through the emotion, teasingly asking if he's going to be a crybaby or a nutcase. With their alibi secure, the commander reveals their next move. A call has pinpointed his friend's location, and now, the rescue mission begins. There's just one problem. His phone is flooded with SOS signals, but neither the time, displaced, delinquent, nor his old-school subordinate knows how to actually check them. Matsumoto panics, claiming he's too old for this tech, while Nishimura hilariously calls him out for being born in the modern era and still being completely useless. Meanwhile, across the city, a desperate chase erupts as a group of boys flee for their lives, pursued by a relentless pack of thugs. One of the runners glances back, a flicker of shock on his face as he realizes just how much distance he's putting between them and their hunters. The pursuers are already gassing out, wheezing and cursing their own poor stamina as their targets begin to slip away. But this isn't luck. The boy flashes back to his hellish training under Goro Takakura, a brutal regimen that has now become his key to survival. Having somehow outrun their pursuers, the exhausted boys stop to regroup, shocked that they actually managed to escape. They question why the Reaper crew, a major power, was after them, only to learn it was revenge for an attack by a mysterious figure named Sato of Amida. As they worry about their missing friends, they naively assume their lack of gang affiliation has kept them safe from the chaos. But that hope is instantly shattered when one of them shouts in panic. His phone is lighting up with a desperate SOS. The screen is a terrifying wall of emergency alerts, all sent from Ishikawa Yuki, confirming their friends are in grave danger. The scene cuts to a dark warehouse, where Ishikawa is tied to a chair as her captors debate having some fun with her before the boss arrives. From a platform above, the true puppet master, Sagura, reveals this entire multi-crew conflict was a grand performance designed for one purpose: to wear Takakura down. When his own men show doubt, Sagara smirks, revealing his absolute control by admitting he was the one who sent the Reaper crew to attack in the first place. A flashback shows the brutal truth behind his words. The legendary Sato of Amida, a one-man army, single-handedly crushing the Reapers and sparking the war. With a chilling smile, Sagara lays out his final move. Once Takakura is released, they'll use his friends as bait to lure him into a trap where he can be utterly destroyed. Sagara casually dismisses Takakura's fate, but his companion, Sato of Amida, can see right through the facade, sensing a different goal entirely. Sato quickly grows bored of the whole spectacle, finding the plan to gang up on a single girl utterly pathetic. But just as his patience wears thin, a new group arrives, and Sagara greets them with a chilling smile, believing his target has finally appeared. Midori steps forward, bravely demanding her friend's release, all while banking on the emergency signal she's already sent out. His expression twists into a cruel sneer as he leans in, informing her that things are just getting started, and this is the price for her defiance. He promises her a front-row seat to the tragedy she caused, declaring that Takakura is going to die tonight. As he gives the order to send the message, a strange, persistent beeping suddenly cuts through the warehouse air. The source is revealed to be a massive forklift, inexplicably reversing as Sagara's men shout in confusion. The entire standoff grinds to a halt, with both captors and captives staring in bewilderment at the bizarre interruption. And the driver is none other than gloomy Sendu of Amida, who's panicking at the controls, unable to figure out how to stop his grand entrance from going backward. Midori watches in utter disbelief, realizing with a groan that the bumbling idiot who showed up is not the hero she was waiting for. But gloomy Sendu, despite being terrified, finds his resolve with Takakura gone. He knows he's the only one who can do anything. He throws caution to the wind and floors it, sending the rogue forklift charging forward and scattering Sagara's men in a wave of panic. Two of Sagara's well-dressed enforcers watch from the sidelines, debating whether they should even bother helping their floundering comrades. Before they can make a move, they're struck from behind, taken out of the fight with a single, devastating blindside attack. The ambushers are revealed to be more Amida members, armed and ready, as they quickly move to dispose of the unconscious bodies. Sendu continues his chaotic charge, shouting to the captives that he's arrived to save them from this nightmare. But his moment of glory is cut brutally short as the bandaged monster, Shugano Roki, intercepts him with a crushing clothesline that sends him flying. Roki, arm in a sling but still an absolute unit, stands over the two men he just effortlessly flattened, a one-man wrecking crew. As Sendu struggles to his feet, the injured giant looms over him, utterly dismissing him as nothing more than a gloomy nerd. With one good arm, Roki brutally grinds his foot into Sendu's back, telling the lowlife to stay in his lane. Though battered and bloodied, Sendu forces himself to hang on, his only thought to stall for as long as humanly possible. Sagara watches the pathetic display from the sidelines, smugly remarking that it takes more than a beating to truly break someone. He then reveals the captured guards, kneeling in defeat, mocking the utter failure of their half-baked rescue plan. The guards can only tremble in despair, one of them whispering a final apology for letting everyone down. But as Sagara turns to continue his victory speech, his taunting question is met with an unexpected silence. Because from the shadows, a new player emerges, calmly announcing that Sagara's time is officially up. A second figure appears right after, his calm demeanor confirming the absolute creed of their gang. Amida always protects its own. The hostage, Ishikawa, watches in disbelief, her eyes widening behind her gag as the impossible begins to happen. Fueled by the arrival of his allies, Sendu rises to his feet once more, all fear erased, ready to finish this fight. Midori hastily excuses herself, rushing out of the office with a frantic energy that belies the simple words she shouts over her shoulder. Her phone screen lights up with a chilling image. Ishikawa Yuki, bound and helpless, a hand condescendingly patting her head. A string of messages confirms her worst fears, a trap, baited with a friend's name and sealed with a threat against Ishikawa's life. Panic sets in as her calls go unanswered, her desperate screams echoing in her mind as she realizes her friend is truly in danger. With no other choice, she triggers an emergency SOS, a silent plea for help sent out into the digital void, praying someone will see it. And as her signal goes out, the scene shifts to the memory of pure, unadulterated violence, a fist connecting with a sickening crunch. One of Sagara's men is being pummeled into oblivion by a bandaged brawler, his mind unable to comprehend the one-sided destruction he's suffering. The man's allies, including Midori herself, can only watch in horror, their pleas to stop lost in the brutal flurry of blows that threaten to end his life. But the SOS found its mark, and now, a new player has arrived on the scene, his shout for Ishikawa cutting through the tension. His eyes lock onto the true mastermind, the man orchestrating it all from the shadows, Sagara. In that moment of agony, the memory surfaces a plan he had completely forgotten. A secret pact made on a lonely rooftop, a strategy to stand against the overwhelming power of Sagara and Millennium. Their key weapon wasn't a fist, but a network, an emergency location system designed to trigger the moment anyone was taken. It was a constant surveillance they had to accept, a lifeline that felt like a chain, but was their only hope. But their tech expert was confident, knowing that in this war, information was everything, and privacy was a luxury. And then, the system screamed to life. A phone flooding with emergency signals a desperate, repeating cry for help from Ishikawa. Instantly, they knew she was gone, and their response was already in the air, a silent drone, their eye in the sky. Its camera pierced through the darkness, locking onto the warehouse and confirming the horrifying truth. Ishikawa was inside, surrounded. The drone settled onto the rooftop, a silent predator waiting for the signal to guide the coming storm. With her exact position confirmed, and another target's location already in their hands, the hunt was about to begin. The Amida crew debates their options. Knowing they can't call the police or wait for backup, they have to act now. One of them spots a forklift, and a reckless, desperate idea begins to form in his mind. He declares the start of Operation Amida Rescue, a heroic charge that the narrative immediately reveals was a catastrophic failure. The result is a brutal, one-sided beatdown, as a single punch completely shatters their momentum. His comrades are forced to kneel, consumed by the crushing weight of their regret and powerlessness. Their attacker is a bandaged monster, Shugano Roki, who demolishes them with ease despite having one arm in a sling. The rescue mission ends before it begins, with bodies left broken on the cold warehouse floor. As consciousness fades, the bitter truth of their weakness without their leader becomes undeniable. Roki stands over his victim, almost impressed, wondering how such a weakling possessed so much pointless toughness. But the thought quickly turns to annoyance. He just wasted his energy on fighters who were beneath him. As the bandaged monster, Roki stands over the fallen, a new fighter from Amida arrives, taking a call with chilling indifference. His eyes are cold, completely unimpressed by the carnage, a calm that speaks of a completely different level of power. But before he can act, Roki's attention is drawn to a single survivor staggering back to his feet, a gloomy-looking gangster he thought head already broken. In a flash of pure shock, a fist crashes into the side of Roki's head, an impossible counter from a man who should be unconscious. Bloodied but not beaten, the young gangster rises, his eyes burning with defiance, declaring that this fight is far from over. His mind flashes back to the one man he ever wanted to be useful for, the legendary Goro Takakura. He remembers the brutal training, the lessons forged in pain that shaped him from a nobody into a fighter. He had always stood beside the man, a pillar of strength he could rely on, a promise that has never faded. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was always just hiding in that great shadow, a pathetic coward afraid to stand on his own. And that shame now fuels his rage, leaving the mighty Roki stunned, infuriated by this gloomy little bastard's impossible will to fight. Enraged at being mocked, the bandaged giant Roki unleashes a furious punch, screaming that his size should be feared. But in a shocking display of sheer will, the gloomy gangster stops the fist with his own forehead, his eyes burning with the resolve that he is sick of being weak. His mind flashes back to a brutal lesson from his master, Goro Takakura, who once asked him how to beat someone stronger. The answer was a terrifying philosophy of exchange, a style that lets them cut your flesh so that you can break their bones. Back in the present, Roki's powerful blow connects, a devastating impact that should have ended the fight right there. Yet the gangster endures it, his only thought to become Takakura's strength, fully embracing the creed to let them cut his flesh, so that he can unleash his own bone-shattering counter, putting every ounce of his borrowed resolve into a single, decisive strike. But this entire savage battle is merely a show for the true puppet master Sagara, who watches calmly alongside his crew and the captured Ishikawa Yuki. And just as the dust begins to settle, a new challenger arrives on the scene, a man with a chillingly confident smirk and headphones around his neck. Roki stumbles back in utter disbelief, only to find himself face to face with the calm, predatory gaze of Sato of Amida. The hulking fighter staggers back from the impact, blood pouring from his nose as his world spins out of focus. But Sato is far from unscathed, a triumphant, bruised smirk spreading across his face as he relishes the successful trade. Sagara and Ishikawa can only watch, completely stunned as the controlled confrontation suddenly erupts into something far more dangerous. Because Keisuke's crew explodes onto the scene, a whirlwind of fists and fury crashing into Sagara's shocked subordinates. They scream encouragement, their loyalty a desperate lifeline as their leader teeters on the edge of collapse. But their voices are lost to the pure, unadulterated rage that consumes Keisuke, his eyes locking onto his target with murderous intent. With a guttural roar, he tears off his apron, casting aside the last of his restraint for an all-out assault. Sato simply taunts him, mocking his opponent for getting cocky over one lucky punch, daring him to come closer. And Keisuke charges, putting every ounce of his remaining strength into a single, desperate haymaker, meant to end it all. Yet Sato stands firm, ready to weather the storm, his entire strategy hinging on surviving this one attack to deliver the final, bone-shattering blow. But Keisuke's loyal crew, who charged in to save their leader, are met not by a fighter, but by a whirlwind of destruction. In a flash, Sato dismantles their formation, each kick landing with bone-shattering force, turning their rescue mission into a massacre. One of Keisuke's men can only stare in disbelief, his vision blurring as he tries to process the impossible speed he just witnessed. His partner is just as broken, blood streaming down his face as he struggles to understand what kind of monster they just attacked. Before he can even think, Sato is on him again, a spinning kick aimed to crush what little fighting spirit he has left. The powerhouse of the crew is sent flying, his large frame tossed aside like it was nothing more than a child's toy. Sato looks down on the last man standing, coldly remarking that in all their time together as a crew, their utter, pathetic defeat was the most interesting thing he's ever seen them do. He leans in close, a terrifyingly calm smile on his face, as he asks if the broken man will entertain him even more. Frozen by a level of dread he's never known, the fighter's bravado evaporates, leaving only a desperate, whispered plea. An old-school gangster shoves his way through the chaos, desperate to find his crew amidst the escalating war. But what he finds is a street littered with his fallen men, all taken down by a single, mysterious fighter standing in their midst. As he confronts the masked man, one of his battered crew members reveals the unbelievable truth. Amida, their own allies, started this war. The accusation makes no sense. Goro knows his people, and there's no way they would ever make a move this reckless without his order. Elsewhere, the man responsible for the carnage finally unmasks, wiping the sweat from a fight that was barely a warm-up for him. Just as Goro tries to process the betrayal, his phone rings relentlessly, a modern contraption he has absolutely no idea how to use. In a bizarre moment of truce, one of the rival gangsters has to teach the powerful but outdated leader how to simply answer a call. He finally gets the phone to his ear, only to hear a panicked voice screaming his name from the other end of the line. The caller is one of Sagara's men, frantic and desperate, revealing that their plans have gone horribly wrong and a major problem has just erupted. The gangster's confusion turns to ice-cold tension as the man on the phone urgently demands to know his exact location. On the other end of the line, Sagara's man panics, completely lost on how to guide the old-school leader through the city's modern streets. But their solution is something straight out of a spy thriller. A high-tech drone appears, locking onto Goro's position and giving him a single, clear order: follow. Mistaking him for the escaped commander, even his enemies can only watch as Goro commandeers a bike and peels out, his target now locked. He tears through the streets like a man possessed, the small machine his only guide through a city that has rapidly devolved into a war zone. Meanwhile, the security manager who aided his escape is cornered, facing down accusations of being a corrupt cop paid off by Amida. But his response isn't one of guilt or fear, it's a look of profound, unwavering loyalty. In a brief flash to the past, we see the reason why a moment with a younger Goro that forged a bond stronger than any bribe could ever buy. A debt that could never be repaid, a promise that now sends the legendary leader flying towards an unknown confrontation. But as Goro races to solve one crisis, another has already reached its brutal conclusion in a dark warehouse, where a once feared gangster lies broken on the floor. The man responsible, Sato of Amida, looms over his victim with a chilling smile, his thirst for violence still not satisfied as he asks for the next real fight. Elsewhere, the true puppet master Sagara watches his own hound of war, a monster he knows is powerful, but dangerously unpredictable. His subordinate wonders how he keeps such a beast on a leash, but Sagara just smiles, hiding the true nature of their deal behind a veil of secrecy. Deep down, however, a crack forms in his perfect composure. His grand design is spiraling, and he can only tell himself that it's all going according to plan. Because at that very moment, his crew is locked in a desperate, chaotic brawl, ambushed by an enemy that shouldn't be there. His men are pushed to the brink, shocked that these gloomy kids somehow discovered their secret base of operations. With no other choice, they resort to pure brute force, a wild charge meant to overwhelm their mysterious attackers. But the true purpose of this chaos is revealed: a terrified Ishikawa, bound to a chair, the key hostage in Sagara's twisted game. And next to her, Midori stands defiant, refusing to break even as their captors close in. From afar, Sagara gives the order to end the fight quickly. This entire battle is just a bloody stepping stone to his real target, Goro Takakura. But his deception is finally exposed, as a beaten fighter looks him in the eye, realizing with dawning horror that Sagara was never their ally to begin with. The realization of betrayal is met with a devastating blow, a strike that rattles his entire world. Before he can even process the impact, a phantom kick slams into his side, an attack he never even saw coming. Dazed and confused, he crashes against the wall, his mind unable to comprehend the sheer, blinding speed of his opponent. Standing over him is not an ally, but a monster in a mask, who took him down with a single, contemptuous hit. In that one exchange, the horrifying truth dawns on him, an absolute, insurmountable difference in power. Meanwhile, Ishikawa struggles against her bonds, crushed by the guilt that her friends are fighting and dying because of her. She pours every last ounce of her strength into breaking free, knowing that time is a luxury they no longer have. But this entire brawl is just a distraction, as Sagara's crew confirms their real target is finally on the move. Using a drone as bait, they are meticulously guiding the legendary Goro Takakura directly into their kill zone. And from his command post, Sagara gives the final order to hold the line, because the main event is about to begin. The legendary Goro Takakura barrels down the highway, completely oblivious that he's being led straight into a slaughterhouse. But for the trap to succeed, they need to buy time, and one man clenches his fist, ready to pay that price with his own body. His opponent, the monstrously strong Sato, simply smirks, eager to break anyone foolish enough to stand in his way. Despite being battered and bruised, Sendu gets back on his feet, determined to hold the line no matter the cost. He's driven by a memory, a simple moment of kindness from a man he once saw as a rival. Momoi's cheesy words of encouragement become the fuel for his final, desperate stand. Screaming with every last ounce of his will, Sendu charges forward in a final act of defiance against an unbeatable foe. From the sidelines, the puppet master Sagara watches in disbelief. Even his strongest couldn't take a hit from Sato, yet this nobody refuses to stay down. But his attention is suddenly pulled away, as the next phase of his grand, twisted plan begins to move. Just as Sagara's attention is diverted, Ishikawa makes her move, having somehow freed herself, and now desperately climbing down to escape. But in her haste, her grip fails, and her hand slips from the cold metal scaffolding. With a silent gasp of terror, she begins to plummet towards the hard ground below. Her friend Midori and an old ally can only watch in stunned horror, completely powerless. A scream rips through the air as she hurtles downwards, bracing for an impact that means certain death. But the crash never comes. She's saved at the last second, landing on the back of a gangster ordered to become her human shield. As this chaos erupts, the old man grabs a weapon, standing as the last line of defense to protect Midori. His defiance is met with cold indifference as one of the attackers shoves him aside, telling him to get out of the way. And with a single, vicious punch, the old man is brutally struck down, his desperate stand utterly crushed. But just as the old man falls, another fight rages on, and a devastating blow connects with a gangster's jaw. The attack is revealed to be a lightning-fast kick from Sato of Amida, a fighter on a completely different level. The gangster spits blood as Hez sent flying, his thoughts of Takakura's imminent arrival brutally cut short. The impact is so severe his earbud is ripped from his ear, sailing through the air. He's slammed into the ground with bone-shattering force, his world spinning into black. Lying broken, a horrifying realization dawns on him. The attacks are too fast, he can't even see them coming. He struggles to breathe, knowing that he's hopelessly outmatched and will be torn apart without landing a single hit. Before he can even recover, another vicious kick comes spinning towards his head, a blur of pure destruction. He barely dodges, the ground cracking where his skull was a moment ago, a chilling reminder of the power gap between them. Panting and broken, the gangster forces himself up, his body already screaming in protest from the punishment it's taken. But the figure looming over him isn't just a fighter. It's a monster, radiating an aura of absolute, terrifying power. A desperate realization hits him. Giving this opponent distance only makes him stronger. His only chance is to get in close and fast. He rushes in, only to be met by an impossibly swift barrage, a whirlwind of strikes that he can neither see nor block. His comms are cut, his desperate calls for Takakura lost to the void as he's brutally pummeled without any hope of backup. The masked demon just smiles, taunting him, asking where his savior is and if this pathetic struggle is all he has to offer. The psychological attack works perfectly. His guard completely crumbles, his body frozen in shock, leaving him wide open. A final, vicious blow connects with blinding speed, a flash of raw power that signals the end of this one-sided execution. And as his victim lies unconscious on the cold ground, Sato simply looks down, utterly bored by the pathetic lack of a real fight. From his vantage point, Sato watches the fight conclude, his own crew surrounded as Sagara's men close in on their target. One of his men, battered and broken, can only apologize for his failure, his body refusing to move another inch. With a cold resolve, Sato decides to end this farce himself, launching a kick meant to crush his final opponent. But suddenly, the roar of an engine tears through the air as a motorcycle bursts onto the scene with impossible speed. It crashes to a halt right in front of him, a shocking and violent interruption that even catches the elite fighter completely off guard. From the shadows, the true puppet master Sagara watches, acknowledging the unwavering loyalty his pawns possess. All while the girls they're trying to protect, Ishikawa and Midori, can only look on in horror and confusion. But the rider is no random thug, it's Goro Takakura, the very man they were waiting for, arriving like a storm. And with a gaze burning with raw fury, he makes a simple promise to his fallen comrade. The real fight starts now.